Welcome to our Standards and Assessment Committee meeting for April of 24. We welcome everyone that's here at USBE headquarters, and we're grateful to also have Board Member Reel nursing her cough at home. And can you hear us, Sarah?
I can. Yes, good morning. Thanks, guys.
Get better. We're going to begin today's meeting with recognition of progress, achievements, and improvements. And we'll turn the time to Deputy Superintendent Norman for this wonderful chance to shout out to Pops. Here we go. It's all yours.
Thank you. First, we're going to recognize Liz Bunker and her work with this, and she's going to just do a little bit at the end of it. So we'll start with the Utah State Board of Education's mission is to open doors of opportunity for all Utah children. This month, we highlight the work of the following area that deserves recognition: the achievement of the Professional Outreach Program in the schools, or you may have heard of it as POPS. POPS represents Utah's unique commitment to the arts. The Professional Outreach Program in the schools is managed by the Utah State Board of Education and is sponsored by the Utah State Legislature and has been a powerful presence in Utah schools for over 50 years. POPS fosters arts education in Utah's public schools by bringing professional arts organizations, educational programs to school for free. The goal is to connect experiences with professional artists, performers, and creators. POPS supports the state's core art standards, both the fine arts and other contents, by providing arts education opportunities to all Utah schools, a massive undertaking that takes creativity, innovation, and dedication. 15 POPS organizations are available to provide lectures, demonstrations, or assemblies, arts instruction in the classroom, teacher professional development workshops, concerts, and performances in dance, media arts, theater, music, and visual art to Utah schools. All content areas represented in the Utah Fine Arts Standards. LEAs have the autonomy to choose from a catalog of offerings that align to their goals, capacity, and interests that will enrich their own creative communities. The POPS program is unique to Utah. There is nothing like it in the US. I'm going to say that one more time because Utah is pretty cool. So the POPS program is unique to Utah. Nothing like it in the US. The POPS group offering adds a high level of learning and access to Utah students and contributes to the fabric of Utah's rich cultural and artistic ecosystem. Through POPS, Utah students can envision a pathway to the future through their own artistic endeavors by learning from and engaging with an artistic professional working with them. The arts truly come full circle. POPS operated on a $6,175,000 budget, and each organization matches one-to-one funding. In school year 23, POPS programs reached 86% of Utah public schools and had a presence in every Utah school district. Additional outreach accomplishments include the number of students served, 473,159, teachers trained, 28,250, and the number of schools served, 3,651. And if anyone wants to look in the backup, it does list the organizations on the sheet, of the recognition sheet, so that you could look at that. So Liz, will you just add on to that really quick?
Yeah. Yes. So there are 15 organizations that represent our 5 fine arts subjects. So media arts, dance, theater, drama, music, and of course, visual arts. So every one of our subjects is represented, which is really great for our elementary schools, which focus on one specific art form in their offerings. So there's a little something for everyone. I think what else is really special about the POPS programs is that we have some really big players with really big budgets that can really kind of get a large amount of students served. And then we have our smaller, more nimble arts nonprofits that can go out and do an in-depth 2-week residency and really take their shows on the road and do something really more in-depth and special. We have some organizations that are bringing in artists from across the country. We have like special residencies that are coming in through all of our different contents, in addition to on-site arts enrichment. So it's really an incredible program. And what the POPs groups are able to accomplish, some with just a few $100,000 of funding, they are required to reach out to every single Utah school in a 3-year cycle. That is a major lift. And the fact that they're able to get into the schools that they are getting into and able to show those numbers, I am still learning just exactly how they're doing that. It is a very, very heavy lift. So I'm very, very proud to represent these groups and introduce Pam Gee, who is the director of Utah Opera for Children. So Pam is working on 2 really interesting initiatives right now. The POPs groups also really customize their offerings every single year, and really get just the nimbleness of the programs, really get to kind of, work with schools, help schools meet their goals, and also incorporate a lot of other core standards besides the fine arts standards, which is really kind of an authentic way of doing arts enrichment. So Pam, tell us about your initiative.
Right, well, I'm going to start by just talking about the Opera by Children base program, which is a very flexible program, and it meets the needs of K through 12 classes in many different settings: grade level, life skills classes, language, choirs, or even orchestra classes. We modified a portion of the process into the Festival Songwriter program. It's a derivative of the program to meet the needs of middle school and high school students, or even a shortened creative experience for some elementary classes. And we're currently working with 2 or 3 students at a time, as an example, in their speech small group learning experiences at 2 Iron District schools using the Festival Songwriter program. That's how small that we have the ability to work. But we also work in larger ways. But we build relationships with our LEA leadership and teachers that we serve. 2 years ago, we celebrated our 25th anniversary. Our program has served well over 100,000 students in that time. We travel to rural and urban areas and build and strengthen our relationships across the state. With the investment of time and resources, we find that even as we build sustainable capacity with returning teachers, they continue to work with us because of our consistent support every year. However, as they grow in confidence, a portion of that support moves to sustain new teachers that join our ranks. Opera by Children naturally meets ELA reading, writing, and literacy standards, and draws in core topics such as social studies and sciences at all grade levels, using the fine arts standards strands of create, perform, produce, respond, and connect in drama, dance, music, and art. And we also utilize media arts tools. We provide professional development workshops for educators to learn how to facilitate operas within their classrooms using the creative process parameters. Then the students create melodies. Whoops, I think I skipped. Yes, I did. They learn how to facilitate operas in their classrooms using the creative process parameters. We encourage all classroom educators to use cross-content strategies to incorporate learning in multiple subject core standards, and we encourage fine arts specialists and BTS arts educators to support grade level teachers using these processes in their classrooms. Students collaborate with one another to create a story. Then it transfers into a libretto format of action sentences, lyrics for songs, and conversations that you sing. And then they create original melodies, learn and use painting techniques that allow them to quickly create ginormous scenery backdrops, and how to creatively pull together costumes, build simple props, and develop their staging. Teachers work side by side with our mentoring artists within our classroom support. This is our base program, but we have 3 examples of some community collaboration that we are focusing on, specifically beginning this year. 2 beginning this year. First, the Indigenous Opera Initiative. We're working with Eileen Quintana and NEBO supporting their Title VI program, as well as Brandy Sarah Reed at Eagle View Elementary in Uinta, as well as Chris Martin, a third grade teacher there. Chris Martin's third grade class has 80% youth students. They've created an original opera based on their creativity, not on their culture. But Brandy Sarah Reed sees the vision and has been working with us to plan a school-wide opera service for them to be able to find their voice and share their culture. Also providing our music program where it is lacking in the school. They have no music program there. Eileen Quintana is doing the same by involving all the students in her summer school at Spanish Oaks in Nebo. They will have 3 operas and will perform in June. We've been planning all year and look forward to seeing the results of these collaborative plans. Second, we have created a community outreach process using our professional art mentor team, working with 400 3rd grade through 12th grade students from 7 schools in 6 LEAs to create 2 large 12-foot by 8-foot panels depicting the areas and cultures that the students live in, Cache Valley, Salt Lake, and Uinta. And a large wall mural, a mosaic of hexagons, as you can see up here, hexagons, which each individual student will depict their own creative pursuits now in a graphic art display, and then how it takes them into their careers for the future. And it will be displayed and installed at the Discovery Gateway Children's Museum in May. High school students will also have the opportunity to help install this mural. Third, and lastly, this is not new, but teachers and students participating in the Opera by Children program projects receive a free ticket and 1 half-price ticket to all our summer productions. We can't expect a kindergartner to attend by themselves, so hence we want to make sure a parent can take them. All currently employed certified K-12 teachers and students in Utah may receive 1 free ticket to each summer production as well. Homeschool students may attend our dress rehearsals free of charge. This is the best way to invite attendance to our professional productions, which happen in our summer festival. So we've had to be creative in figuring out how to get students there. And we are grateful, very grateful to USPE for your support, for all that we receive in matching funds, and the guidance we have through the POPS program to keep our education programs effective and vibrant. We truly appreciate or are grateful to be a part of this POPS program. Thank you for the time.
Wanted to thank you and really recognize this program and all of the work that's being done, especially as the Utah State Board of Education manages the program, and then seeing the results of all of that really purposeful work. So thank you. Turning it back over to you.
It is, as Deputy Superintendent Norman was giving a little intro, there was one phrase that jumped out at me. POPS operates on a $6,175,000 budget, and each organization, this is the part that matches 1-to-1 funding. When you think about all of these amazing organizations that are making that kind of a commitment, it's wonderful that we have support from the legislature and that we have, we're able to and implement that support and get it out to those of you folks who are making the magic happen in our schools. But the fact that you are matching all of that with all of the other things that you're involved in across the state for each of these amazing organizations, I think that is what is unique in all the world. That kind of a commitment, that kind of a partnership. And when you look at some of the wonderful photographs that you shared in the presentation and the kids' faces and the masks and the amazing backdrops that they're painting and the involvement of K through 12 in installations and in performances. It's just, it's definitely why I'm here. This is the kind of outreach and the kinds of experiences that I want every child. And I think we all share that desire. We want every child to have these rich experiences in every content area. And what a pleasure to have such willing and enthusiastic partners in this endeavor. Thank you very much.
We appreciate being
Really
part of
appreciate
it.
it.
Real quick too, this is gonna be like 10 to 11 years ago. My daughter is graduating this year, but she did, they put together an opera in her class. So their teacher, they conceptualized the, the themes, just like you said, they brought in the science and they developed a storyline and their opera, which when I heard as a parent, I'm like, you're doing what? You're making a
It's a grand endeavor.
yeah. Grand too, and their opera was called Journey Through the Portals. And so they talked about going through space. So everything was space themed, and they created the sets. In the classroom you go, and there's paint everywhere, and they lay the tarps down, they cut it all out, and then we did the t-shirts, so the kids got to decorate their t-shirts, and then everybody had their singing parts. The teacher, she had a music background, so she was able to take their script and then bring it back, and there was notes to the song, and that was a really big day. And I mean, what an experience. It was so amazing. So, and that was just, kind of doing what you're doing. So I love it. I think it's fantastic.
And now her daughter is the runner-up for the state musical theater,
Music and drama.
music and drama, Sterling Scholar.
Those are the stories that we often hear are they've gone through our program. We're not trying to make opera stars. That's not the point of our program. But many do explore their theatrical side and they go on and do amazing things. And one of the other things, the main purpose is to really create confident community members and that they are self-aware and also in a way that they can communicate and collaborate with others. And that's exactly what this program engenders, is community building. By helping them listen and learn and collaborate, because they're writing one story together. They're creating one opera. And when you first start, all the ideas are everywhere. And it feels overwhelming to the teacher at first, because they're like, I don't know how to keep this. And they say, this is the process. These are the creative processes. And we have to just get it so that we can funnel it down. And everyone agrees on one storyline. And then we expand it again for more details in that libretto process until they are able to really have a product that they are excited about, something they produce together that they're very pleased to be able to share with others. And the performance is not where it's at, it's that process. But performance is part of that process. We create so that we can share. And that's what we talk about, is that we're creating to share. And we're creating students who have confidence in themselves.
So I'm wondering if you could do your presentation one more time and sing it to us this time.
I don't know what I've done that.
Can you stop her and ask her to finish?
Well, I went through the Change Leader program with the Utah Division of Arts Museum in 2006. And I was the last one on the docket sharing my project, which was updating my manual at the time. And so it was so dry. And we're supposed to only have 3 minutes. And guess what? Everybody else was taking 20, 25 minutes. And I got up and I sang my presentation. Because everyone was just dead. And so I sang every single word of my 3 minutes. And actually it didn't take 3 minutes, because when you put the emotion in with music, you don't need it. But yes, now I'm asked to sing a lot of things. Sure, sing. I'm like, okay, so next time.
here in our own offices, Liz, you're kind of the person that stirs the pot and gets everybody what they need to continue to function and to continue to make the magic happen with all of our students. And we express appreciation to you. We know it's a heavy lift coordinating with that many groups, and with their coordination with LEAs and charters and schools across the entire state is a little bit frazzling, to say the least. And we appreciate your efforts to just stay right on task and make sure that every child gets the opportunity that we are prepared to provide for them. Thank you. I know that the success of this magnificent program does not come without cost, and we appreciate your efforts. Here's just a little thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you very much.
What a fun way to start our meeting. Appreciate it. Appreciate getting a report on the magic of Opera by Children. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. My pleasure.
All right. Next, we have public comment.
Yeah, and we
We
don't have
any
anybody for public comment today.
Okay, well, great. We're ready now then to move on into our AI framework agenda item. And we'll turn the time to Patty, Rick, Melanie, and Christina for this presentation.
Thank you. We are all just so excited today to bring this presentation to the board because so much work has been done on it so far. I wanted to give some background first of what's happening in the agency with AI so you can see where this framework fits within. Is that okay if we do that?
Please, go ahead.
So starting back in August, we had the great, I will tell you my introduction into this. I was sitting at a meeting with Todd Call. I'm seeing if he's in here or not. Yeah, and as we're sitting in this meeting, it was lunchtime. It was the board meeting, and at lunchtime he came into my office, and there was a few of us sitting around the table, and he was like, "So have you seen AI work?" And I'm like, "No, but I've heard a lot about it. You know, it's like this buzzword that was out there." And he goes, "Watch." And so the people that were in the room, he entered our names, and then he put board meeting, and he put the mission vision of Utah State Board, and he goes, "Now let me read you a poem." And he was like, "Patty, Todd, and we're sitting in a room on behalf of this amazing poem, like just popped out." And I was like, "How did you do that?" Is AI. And I was sold. It was like a crush. It was like, oh my goodness, where has this been? But with a crush, there's also those things that you have a crush in the beginning, but that you really need to understand the full and complete purpose, the guardrails, what happens, and not just fall in love with it because it's new, bright, and shiny, because those crushes don't last. So with that in mind, we really started digging down as an agency to be able to say we cannot miss the opportunity that we did miss when it came to our web browsing, our internet, all of those things. We missed the opportunity in education and became reactive to some of those things to say, wait, we can't do that because it already happened, and we can't do that because something bad happened. And so learning from all of those things, really sitting down to say, then what is it that we need? So with the guidance of Superintendent Dixon, we sat down and said, what needs to happen first? And the very first thing before we can guide anyone else is to be able to have a thorough understanding as an agency of what AI is, what it can do, what those guardrails are, which are, you know, we have to understand the safety measures as well as the accelerators, because if we're operating on just one or just the other, then we're not going to be able to provide the education our students need and deserve to operate in where it exists now and in the future. So we developed 4 different committees, and the 4 committees are, let's see, we have Melanie, and she is over the professional learning policy. Policy, she's over the policy, thank you. We have professional learning, and that is John Lyman.
John Lyman,
Yes,
but
I'm trying to find it.
Yeah.
I'll just tell you what more. Policy, professional learning, then we have the data statistics, and then we also have the IT, the coding and all of those things within it. And so the people over that are Melanie, John, Matt Ferris, and
is it Megan? No.
Sam.
Who's over data?
Aaron. We have
Well,
four people.
no, but on the Sky team is somebody else.
So we
It's
formed the Sky
Kathleen.
team, which is the steering
Kathleen
committee
Mock.
for artificial intelligence. And so with the Sky team in those 4 different committees, they meet individually, and we'll give you the names of everyone who's in charge. I apologize for not remembering it right off. So each one of them meets individually as subcommittees, and then we come back together as a steering committee and talk about where we're at, what needs to happen. So with that in mind, one of the things that has occurred was there was a policy. That was our very first thing that needed to happen. What needs to happen with the computers for our staff, our agency? How do we make sure that we're not sharing information that is protected? How do we really ensure we have all of those guardrails in place? And we knew, and I don't know how many of you downloaded at any time or used ChatGPT. And with ChatGPT, that information goes out. It's a generative artificial intelligence where it takes information out there and then it generates the outcome from what's already available. It doesn't learn. It just takes what's out there and then it synthesizes that and gives you back what you want. So with that in mind, we had the policy and that went through internally. And so we had that went out to quite a few people. And I don't know, Rick or Melanie, if you want to talk about how many different groups the policy went out to.
Every major team in the agency went out to student support, special ed, data, stewards, finance, course teaching and learning.
And there were several iterations because we would sit and go, this is really good, really, really good. And then when you'd send it to another section, they were saying, that's not possible. We can't do that. We need to be able to have more flexibility here. And then when we added the flexibility, someone else that was over cybersecurity would say, now wait a minute, that's not good because it opens us up for this. So for it to be able to go around in all of those iterations to come to what was right, took a lot of time. It took more time than we thought. And we weren't trying to be the first state to put it out there and say, we have our policy on AI. We were trying to be the most purposeful and well-planned and really informed state to be able to say, when we put it out there, then and even being aware of this is our policy for now, with the understanding it might have different iterations even throughout this same year because of things that we find that are coming. So this isn't one of those policies, yes, said and done, cross it off, we won't have to go back to it in 2 years. We are fully aware that this is just a foundational policy and then moving forward. With that in mind, the agency also invested in Microsoft Copilot, and that's the artificial intelligence, the generative tool that helps in the work that we do. The IT team was very influential in being able to get that procured. Right now, it's kind of in our pilot stage, we would say. So the members of the Sky Committee have access to it, including our 3 board members that are on it, which is Sarah Reel, Joe Carey, and Leanne Wood. So they're the members who are on the AI committees, and they kind of, will step in and out as their schedules allow. So with that early access, we're really trying to make sure that it's safe and reliable. One of the first things that we did is we typed in, find my W-2, and it would pull everybody's W-2. And then they're like, okay, that should be in a shared drive. And then we put in there, find my professional learning plan, or someone on whatever. All of a sudden, people's performance plans came up. You're like, those shouldn't be in shared drives. And so really being able to, on a very small group level, try to break it and try to make sure things didn't happen. And as soon as we started to do that, we got to the next level that now we need sensitivity labels. So I want you to know and have full confidence that as an agency, we're not just pushing it out. This is a funnest new thing or whatever. We're being so purposeful and careful to make sure that our employees are safe, our teachers are safe, our students are safe, before we go full scale. Then we had some folks do, and John Lyman worked on this primarily, created a policy avatar series of professional learning, and it shows our actual folks in our agencies with avatars and our room and everything. Is very, very engaging and talks about what the policy is. When our full agency gets access to it, they actually have to do the training before they can have access to the Copilot tool, because we don't want anyone to go, well, I didn't know. Because they have to do the training, pass the questions off, and then be able to say, okay, now you have it, and it will do the sections. So that's very purposeful. At the same time, lots of LEAs reaching out saying, do you have any guidance? What do you have? Can you give us something, And as the group worked, the Sky group worked, it really wasn't about tell us what to do. It's tell us how we can create this and have it be flexible for us, and really let us have that local decision making first. And I don't know, Rick or Melanie or who might want to talk about the fact that in looking at the framework that is before you today, it isn't so much about all of these new things that need to happen. It was really about finding the things that are foundational anyway, with acceptable use agreements, with what you should be doing on the internet, with COPUS, all of these things that are already in place to be able to say, make sure you follow these guidelines. So I don't know who would like to add more to that.
So this is a suggestion to LEAs. Oh, I would, thank you. My name is Melanie Durkee. I work for Digital Teaching. So we call out these existing federal and state policies, and also the USBE policies, the board rule, and these are really important. Cyberbullying, policies for electronic devices in public schools, digital literacy, library media, digital citizenship. So we really are calling the LEAs to look at their LEA policies on these things and use them as guidelines. And so we came up with some suggested ideas for acceptable use and prohibited use. The acceptable use is for student learning. AI generation is really good for communication and content creation. It's also really good for tutoring support and virtual teaching assistance. This can really help move things. And as far as teacher support, it's really good for question creation, standardized feedback, and differentiated learning and professional development. And this is not in the slide I'm reading, but you can give it words and say, make this into a song. And it will. So the prohibited use. And this is not new, but we're going to have to, we suggest LEAs emphasize bullying and harassment, over-reliance on the technology, and unequal access. So if teachers say, you need to go home and do this on your computers that have AI at home, some families might not allow that in their home. And then one of the prohibited use for teachers is teachers, they need to address the data bias. If they don't address the data bias, that is something that we really need to watch out for. Diminish student and teacher agency and accountability. Yes.
Explain what data bias is.
Okay.
I was just gonna write down.
Okay, so ChatGPT captured data around 2022, and it built its model after that, its language model. And at the time of 2022, we looked at a lot, it captured all the data on the internet. And the data on the internet is skewed towards men who are white, because that's the data that we had access to at that time. The VA does the Veterans Association, they do a great deal of data research, and historically, there are more men in the service than women. And so if you get data back from about some of the special groups, you will see that it's a little bit skewed. And if you know that, then you can go back to the websites and look at them. So it's not that you're not left hanging. You just think, oh, if I am doing this kind of research on ChatGPT, I need to go back to these sites that they reference and see what the sample size sees, see what the participants look like. So just to not accept what comes to you as true, but find resources and then go back to that site and make sure that that the data is as valid as you need it to be.
If I can add on to that, we also have board member Real who has a question. So a really simple way of talking about data bias is AI can only pull out what's in there. That's it. And so if something's not in there, it will not be a part of your answer. And so an example of that is the fact that we had a promptathon. We had Microsoft come in and they taught how to write prompts. They can, you know, say, include these things from this audience, doing these, so that whatever you're answering, it's not just going to be looking for the easiest thing, like the first thing that pops up and pulling it in from there, but it's more robust. So when we talk about what that really looks like with the data bias, we need to be, I think that right now, one of the biggest guardrails that's out there is we all now have a moral obligation, and I know I use that very heavily, not lightly, to be able to populate now back into the internet. So if we have studies coming out of USB, we've had some studies that are being asked for, we need to make sure that we put those results on our USBE website open to the public, so that when someone's doing a query, that is part of now the information that will inform what has been generated. Because without that, so a lot of times we've been talking about within our AI that we're doing here, the Microsoft Copilot is a walled garden, which means that anything that is within USBE can only be accessed by USBE. So like if we have special coding, if we have, you know, protected student identifiers, no one outside of these sensitivity labels can have access to this. It stays within the walled garden. But if we only keep everything in the walled garden, then none of this information goes out to the public to be generated to produce an outcome. So we have to be very specific about, while creating and making and doing, it stays within a walled garden and protected. But afterwards, when we get to the results and the findings, we should publish that to a website, so that when it comes to data bias, we're part of who informs the generation of that poll. Does that make sense? So right now, a lot of times the articles, to Melanie's point, that are out there might come from, there could be more articles on just one thing. So when the generative AI is trying to pull, it will say most of the articles are about this, but it might not have all of the articles. So you might have to, in your prompt, include specific words. Tell me, you know, how this impacts boys. Tell me how this, you know, has this changed within the last 2 years? You know, those types of things, you know, has the data changed from 20 to, you know, whatever. So they're asking and using that critical thinking that's within the portrait of a graduate, you know, those skills that they're learning, to be able to say, okay, this is what came first. I'm going to read through it now, going back to the primary source to say, is this really what it meant? And what was the end size in the sample? What is happening with this? So anyways, that's kind of what, yeah. Thank you.
Board member Real, got a comment?
Good morning. So I want to first I want to applaud USBE for being so proactive on the AI front, because I know a lot of institutions have barely touched on thinking about AI in the education space, but to have this draft framework already ready is outstanding. So just applaud on being so proactive. The other piece I was going to talk about is that the thing about AI that I've been learning is that it's just going to be always changing. So we have this framework in place, but as the technology advances and changes, I think we're going to have to be continually changing and adapting our framework in different ways to try and make it work. And then the other piece I think that is the most important is helping folks understand that AI is never going to be perfect. And I think that folks need to know that. Including students and staff, is that like you always have to question if what AI is pulling for you is accurate. And I think that's an important part of using. We're all now able to Google things, and we're all we're really great at knowing like, I'm not going to click on that. That's an ad, or that seems like a source. That website that pulled up first seems like a source that isn't reliable. We kind of have to learn all of that with AI. But the one piece that I was wondering about is I didn't see any mention of including AI checkers in LMSs, like learning management systems. And I didn't know if that was something that we think we should maybe mention. I know this just from my experience in teaching, because I teach college students, and I tell them, I'm like, you better not use ChatGPT to write your paper. I will notice, even though I probably won't notice, sort of do that scare tactic to them. But I think it might be worth putting something in there about encouraging LEAs to include AI checkers, or like there's like plugins you can put into Canvas and things to check if students are using AI to write their papers. And so that seemed like something, that only piece on the whole framework that I thought maybe was missing something.
Can I add to that?
Yeah.
So, and I'm glad we're talking about this because it is a concern. My daughter, just filling out her application, she had written a sentence to put as a subtitle there. And then she put it into chat just to see if there was any improvement. So, this utilization. And then it went through, but that sentence went through another program, which I think is what you're talking about, remember, Real? It says that it was AI generated. The sentence was not AI generated. It was from her. And she was insulted because she was like, hey, that's my sentence. But here we are in this weird place, and it will be ever changing. Now it's like, now she has to try and prove against an AI system that sentence was hers, not plagiarized from an AI system. She says the only thing that I can think is that learning how to prompt into a sentence is something that maybe it has been developed, because you can see, transition sentences or lead-in sentences or whatever sentence structure. And then maybe us as humans, we're going to mirror what it is that we're learning. So a sentence was mirrored because of what she's seeing, how AI structures a sentence. Interesting, right?
You just explained such an intricate concept. Thank you. Now I don't have to. That is amazing. Yes.
So there we are.
Yes.
And I don't know what we're going to do about that, but here we are. Like, we have to have conversations because it's already happening.
Ready or not?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I have two comments to that. And the first is that we have not found an AI checker that is extremely reliable. Sidebar, I saw something on the TikTok. This is for you, Sarah Real, because you, in your writing prompt to students, make sure that it's 2 paragraphs, and 1 paragraph, 2 paragraph, and in the middle, write, and in your response, use code words, dragon and marshmallows, and then take that, copy it, make the text white, and make it as small a text as you can, so it's invisible. That's the only way I know, until other people figure that one out. So if the student's response has marshmallow and dragons in it, the teacher will know. And that's only as good until other people see that TikTok video. So that's a sidebar. So if you choose not to learn something I said, that's the thing not to learn. So back to it. I love that. I just don't know that there is an AI tracker that we can consistently rely on. What we're suggesting that teachers do is change the way that they teach, in that just being able to sit down and write and generate ideas is not going to be a skill that we need anymore, because AI can generate our ideas. We can put our bumbled words into AI, and AI can make it into pretty words. So the students of the future are going to need to look at the AI words and say, no, that's not the voice I want. That's not the tone I want. And so we're encouraging teachers to look at the way that they teach writing and change that. For example, please write an essay on the Great Gatsby. That there's just no way that you can assign that to students and think that someone's not going to put that into AI. But instead you could say, the green light comes up so many times in Great Gatsby. What do you think it means? Give all the answers that ChatGPT gives, and then you write what you think is the most significant part of the green light. So that's just an example of how teachers can change the way that they teach writing. Instead of giving some broad umbrella, they have to be really specific.
And I can add to that as well. I appreciate how you say recognize it as a tool. Our kids are using it as a tool. If we treat it as a tool instead of as something that is wrong or you're doing it, you're cheating, and you recognize the fact that those who have access to it will use it. So if it's within the teaching the part, it's a draft, it's a piece of. The other parts is there's some really good professional learning that's out there for teachers, which is where we're going to be going, especially because we have a position open now for an AI specialist. It's almost open. It's almost open. It's almost open. It's been like since November, I think, that we've been trying to get it open. But part of that is being able to provide those professional learning experiences to teachers. Right now, like I can usually go on and tell the difference if something's been generated by artificial intelligence, means like the generative piece. But if we add in as teachers to be able to say personalize this, add in, this is what happened in the Great Gatsby. How does that relate to our school mission and vision and to you as a person and your learning goals and learning trajectory? How does it? And so that personalization piece, the student actually has to sit and then go, well, what is our vision and mission? To what do I want to do in the future? And so really being able to process and have those steps be a part of it is kind of like the show your work in math. But instead, here's the iterations. I know you're going to be doing this, but you have to use these different iterations of what does it look like. So anyways, there are different in each content area that are starting to be created. And we're hoping to do some of that really purposeful work as well. So first our staff understanding, setting up the appropriate guardrails and accelerators, and then being able to say in our schools, and we've been able to go, the Sky Committee's been able to go, and we've gone out to some of our schools that are already using some of these things. I know some of the folks were a part of the Excel and Ed and were able to go to that, and we saw the Conamigo. We have some schools using Power AI. We have schools using School AI. We're having Skillstruck. Yeah, Skillstruck. And so being able to go out and see how they're using it currently as a tool, recognizing that students have access to it. But I think that's the first thing. You can either say, we're going to be doing this thing in class, and we're doing this thing outside of class. You're getting ready for it outside of class, but when you come inside, we're going to use the Socratic method. That was just for you to get ready and give you information. Now you're going to use it in Socratic method. We're going to sit and we're going to be able to have these deep conversations about what that means, it looks like. So using what they did, not just write the report, write, understand, learn about, because when you come in, you need to be ready to discuss. You need to be able to use that information in talking to your peers. So that just different ways of teaching and getting that information in.
Sorry, one comment really quick. I guess what I was thinking was, even if we don't have a perfect tool for educators to use to check their students' work, and if they're using AI, I wonder if we can just mention, like in the framework, educators should be open or looking for, or like consider, if available, AI checkers in their LMS to make sure, I don't know, something that's like very like broad and just like kind of notes that there may be tools available in the future or something like that. I swear Canvas has one, but maybe I'm completely wrong.
It's in Canvas, it's the plagiarism checker.
Yeah, the plagiarism checker, but I thought that they might, my brain's too full, but I thought I heard of one coming, or that there was one that they were working on, just like to say, like, hopefully there'll be tools in the future to help support educators in making sure their students aren't using AI to do their coursework.
So it could be, we could put something in about plagiarism tools, right? Or something, AI plagiarism tools, and leave it broad. I just like you said, I think we are going to have to come back and quarterly, right? This isn't something that's a one and done. So
Can I just get my worst fear out?
Yes.
Please.
AI. And that is that it's like our generation, they're born and they're put in front of a screen. You know, all the developmental interaction from 0 to 3 is like, you know, and it just breaks my heart. And then we're taking, you know, and this happened to my daughter. It's like, well, if she can't write, she can't type, she can do speech to print. But now we have totally eliminated her ability to write, now type. You know, she's just left to speech. I mean, the disservice to that. I demanded that off her IEP, and now I'm homeschooling her for 2 years. But like, I mean, this is real stuff. That technology strips away the human struggle for development. And so I don't want AI to strip away the growing and learning is messy. And children going through that is messy. And I don't want AI to strip away the ability for students to be put into a space, which is school, where they have to struggle through their thoughts. Because you train your ability to critically think. I mean, that's one of our big things. We want them to know how to critically think about things. And so I don't want AI to strip away that ability for them to struggle through the difficulty of growing and learning. And I fear AI can become that automatic crutch. So there's my worst fear, that AI would be the first, instead of, you know, the Gatsby example, if I may, you know, read the book and then we prompt them first and then we take it to AI, rather than AI first and then, because then AI in essence kind of becomes our conscience or our God. You know, we take it, instead of taking something, if you're a religious person, you take it to prayer, you know, and you receive discernment or whatnot. Or if you're a yogi, you go meditate on it, you have those floodgates open of your intuitions. And so AI has the potential to take over both if we're not going to take the time to teach this generation. First, their mind is their greatest computer, and their essence is their greatest AI, and AI comes because of that. That's my belief system. I don't know.
Absolutely, 100% agree. And I would say that everyone that's on the Sky Committee would say the same thing, every single person. And that's why we wanted to get ahead of it, is because if not, then what we did with the internet was wrong. We were like, oh, here, people can use it. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, should we put age ranges on it? Probably so. Oh, should we put blockers on it? Yeah. Should we probably have parents be able to be in charge of that? Yeah. What about, and so we did all of that afterwards, after the damage was done. And so that's where we're trying to be super purposeful now, to be able to say, this is limited. Like on our policy that was just passed internally is the fact that once the policy, so it's passed, and now we're going to be able to have the trainings to be able to get the ChatGPT, the Copilot on here, is on your devices that are work related, you can't have those external, you can have the Copilot. And then there will be a process if there's something that absolutely has to be on, that will go through our IT department to be able to check for data privacy to see what's being pulled, what's being pushed, any of those things. So nothing else can be used on our work computers or our work devices. And so we're operating on the function now of we're trying to restrict more, and then as we learn, be able to grow, and then to be able to provide that with our teachers as well. But we couldn't do it to that point of saying, you know, would I be able to recognize AI, all of it? Absolutely not. But I can see some of the patterns already just because having done it, and see some of the things that are going on. And so I think that right now, that's one of our greatest concerns too, because here's a short, brief story. After Todd Call showed me that beautiful poem and I had the crush on AI, that weekend, and I don't watch a lot of TV, there was some AI movie on it. I'm like, oh, this is what Todd was talking about. And I'm not going to tell the name of the movie or the ending. I'll tell you the ending though, so no one knows what the movie is. But the ending is there's a woman who is just absolutely marvelous and incredible and intelligent, and she's in her 30s, and it shows like the future, like it generated what her thought processes were in her cycle, and it showed something was going to happen when she was like 55. So they went and arrested her as a 33-year-old because of something that was going to happen in the future. And I was like, oh, the devil. Oh no, what am I? So I instantly had this, you know, crush with the fact of like, this isn't a very good guy. You also got to like, you really be really aware. So I think that was meant to happen, because it was the instant balance of saying, okay, we have to protect our kids. That's our number one priority. And then we can say, here's a tool. And with this tool, what can be accomplished in education? And also what guardrails can we put in place in case kids and parents and whatever are using it outside and they're not even aware of it. So,
Well, and I know that.
Rick, yeah, Rick has his hand up.
Okay, I'll come. Is there something in the policy that?
Thank you. Are you able to hear me okay?
Very well, thank you.
Oh, there, very good. Thank you. Just a couple of things to round some things out. We are going to be successful with this, and the reason I say that is that we've already been successful in going through a transformation very similar to this. Just over 30 years ago, I was introduced to a new tool in technology in schools called the internet. We've never had that before. And it was this being able to access libraries of information and being able to transform the ways that we could bring additional information and resources and tools. And we've all seen that tool over the years. You can think back to the very first time that you were on the internet. And you've seen how that has evolved and grown. And we've been able to figure out how to really make it work for us. I think, in so many ways. Now, there are many, many benefits that we've been able to have, and there's also some risks even with the internet. We've learned those things over time. We are in the midst of another transformation. The advent of AI in November of 2022 is a transformative moment when these AI tools were released. These generative AI tools were released. It's transformative, but we will be successful. But what we do, and I think the purpose of coming today is to look at this framework. Why do we call it a framework? Is that it allows for a lot of flexibility at the local level. We all live in houses, but I can guarantee that all of our houses are different, and our districts and schools are going to have different needs and different ways that they want to look at this. And I think that's the guidance that we're trying to provide for them is the ability to understand what it is that they need. And it's like building a house. We have a foundation, we have electrical, we have plumbing, we have walls, but all of that, those are all standard to all of us. But then there's nuances, some want one color and some want carpet, some want, linoleum, and some want, new kinds of flooring. All of those nuances in that will be able to be handled by the LEAs. This framework will help, I think, our LEAs to understand that there are risks, but there are benefits. How do you mitigate those risks? How do you take advantage of those benefits? And that's, but I feel that we're going to, I know we're going to be successful. We've been through this transformation already once before, and we're going to learn a lot. But I think as Utah and the guidance that we're trying to provide, I think it's some of the best in the country. And I've seen some of the other states and what they're trying to come up with policies and being very, very specific. And I think coming with an idea of let's give some really broad guides is really going to help our LEAs. And it's really what superintendents in some recent surveys are saying. That's what they need. They need some guidance.
Would you like for us to continue through the PowerPoint and the sections of it? Okay.
Did you want to ask your question?
I am trying to find because I've read through the document here. I can't remember now, so go ahead.
We probably will run across it, maybe.
Yeah, I think so. Okay, we'll keep going.
Melanie, do you want me to?
Yeah, let's go to slide 10.
I remember.
Tell me which one is this one?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So these are the existing policies that we referenced. We showed this to a group of educational technology leaders, and several said, including Jordan, this is perfect for us. We just need to call out our policies. We have all of this covered through our existing policies. Now, maybe we're going to have to be more specific about our cyberbullying policy or our student data privacy policy, but we don't feel a need to have an AI policy in our LEA. We just need to focus on existing policies. That's what Jordan said, and I believe Alpine said it too. Next slide.
14,
Yes.
jump.
Or 18. Let's go to 18. It's got lots of words on it.
Is this the policy, or is this condensed into a presentation?
This condensed into a presentation. I changed my mind, Andrea. I want to go to 16.
Would you like to have access to this slide deck afterwards?
I can clean it up also because it's geared towards LEAs. Well, maybe you want that. Maybe you want that. So these are the prohibited uses: bullying and harassment, over-reliance. Plagiarism and cheating, and unequal access. A side note again, in the 90s, I taught English at Brighton High School. That was pre-internet at Brighton High School. So the way that I taught English is unacceptable now. There's just no way that I could use any of the same materials or have the same tactics or anything like that. It has to completely change. So there's going to have to be some changes with teachers in order to accomplish over-reliance. And that is speaking to what you were talking about. And also, we just finished our USET conference, Utah Coalition of Educational Technology. And every session I was in, the DTL team, that's the team that I'm on, we had a room and we presented 10 times among the three of us. I know, we were exhausted. Not doing that again, but it was really informative. And every single session that we had, it all came back to the same place in the conversation, which is before we do anything else, students need to feel like they are personally involved in their classes. It's like, well, this is a conference on technology, not that. And they're like, we don't care. Show us how technology can do that. So I tell you that as a reassurance that teachers are thinking about this. A lot of people are thinking about this, what you were mentioning, Board Member Green, and this is of great concern. So I just want you to know you're not alone in your worst fear.
I think it's not just AI. I think it's just in general technology and general taking over our lives. So that may be why they're feeling that pull, even though this is new, right?
I agree.
That they're already cautious, saying, wait, we're not going to just jump into this. We want to go into it the right way, so we're not losing that connectivity with kids, right?
And I think it's also just when you look at it's everything in technology, and everything is monumental. I mean, there is so much. Sometimes I'll just sit down after a meeting or after something else I've been doing, and I just look at my phone for a second and start scrolling. It's just like, okay, I don't have time for this. I don't want to see all of this stuff. I don't want to know. I mean, all that stuff is happening. Oh my gosh, what if there's something that I really need to know, but I don't have time? I've got to go spend some time with my grandson, that overwhelming, just how much there is out there can, send you into a panic attack.
Yeah.
That it's impossible. Okay, so let's accept the fact that it is impossible. So be very careful in be very specific,
Judicious.
in your choices, and do what you can, and you're not going to be able to do everything because it's too much. And what you do choose to do, hopefully will be enough. And if it's not, we'll figure it out down the road. But, coming up with some mental orientation and reorientations to help people not freak out that all of this stuff is I mean, the entire world is accessible to me today. And, okay, that's great. And what am I supposed to do with it? It's a lot.
Can you see in my face that I feel your pain? Also, one more thing, all of the educational technology leaders meet once a month and discuss this and share new ideas and share things that have worked and things that haven't. I just want you to know that there is a system involved that is addressing this.
Great.
Chair, if I may.
Please.
In the very beginning, I neglected to say, so we have Christina Yamada and Rick that are the co-chairs of SKY. And I don't know if you just want to quickly say what CTE is doing, where it fits, and that the funding that you received, that type of thing. Is that okay?
Yeah, sure. I'm Christina Yamada. I'm an education specialist in CTE and work with this wonderful team on AI that we've been building. My job really is to help, because CTE kind of covers lots of areas of doing, right? We do lots in CTE. And so AI is very important to us, as well as the governor has made a request to include AI in the legislative money that we receive through legislation. And this year it was now we have a total of $10 million to invest in computer science, which AI now includes. And so my message to every teacher in CTE, and I have tried to instill this on all 10 specialists in CTE to then instill into their teachers, is we have to teach students how to be good stewards of technology. Otherwise, we'll be jumping every year on what the new product is and how to move forward with it and how do we protect children from it. And instead, we need to teach our students how to be the good steward of all this new technology instead, because that way we can adapt and they can adapt to the new technology without us having to have this crush on something brand new and doing it over and over and over again. But let's teach students how to be those good stewards of it. And that's what we're trying to incorporate it into this computer science grant that includes the funding now for AI. So people have had problems with, well, if we just, lots of my computer science committee has had problems with, if we just give them a program like Skillstruck or School AI or Magic AI or whatever it's called, is that really teaching students how to be good stewards of technology? You know, giving them a way to do that. And I don't know, it's a big debate, right? This whole thing can be debated either way. And so my job here on the committee is always trying to keep the student perspective, the teacher perspective into this whole thing on, you know, we need to teach our teachers how to teach students to be good stewards of all this.
And so we go back to those slides, if you don't have to. It was like, here's those federal, rules that are in there. We need to follow. Those are still applicable regardless of the technology that's being used. And so I think, they're all technology. And so I think that's something that's really important. That's the focus. And that's why there's such a need to have something for our LEAs, because they don't have time to be able to go now, is there something here? And is there a law on, or how do we do? And so that's what choice, this is a choice, just a framework. You can take it as is, you can do whatever but you have all of the information. So this is kind of more like, here is the framework of an information packet if you want to address these areas in any future policy or work that you're doing in the area of AI.
And LEAs have been asking for this.
Yes, but
they want to, but they're talking way before, when it first started, they're like
Direction, right?
Yeah,
I love
because they don't know.
all the laws, just all those words first. That's super helpful.
I think it's an excellent document.
And again, it's living, breathing. We anticipate it might come back again this year. It might. Twice. Yeah, it might. And so we can't get to perfect on it yet because it's so new. And so, but we need to get something out there to protect people.
What is our process then? We approve this here, approve it through the board, any changes or recommendations that's had there. And then someone's going to push it out, present it? What does that look like?
Start being presented in these areas like in digital teaching and learning, and we presented like, here's the framework, here's the framework, it'd be on our website. So it would start being referred to as a tool.
Accessible.
Yeah, so we're not gonna do a special, I don't think, workshop right away to say.
Right, but would you, I mean,
If you wanted us to,
email that just notifies
yeah, we send it out.
to the technology leaders in our districts or
And if you
whatever.
have suggested ways, we want it to be online for our parents as well.
Yeah.
So that'd be a good place to put it, you know, working with Cassie on that as well. So just, and if you have any other ideas of how to get it out, then.
Well, I wonder if we, even on that, just allow for some kind of a link for feedback associated with, do you know what I mean? Underneath it, just, so there's an immediate feedback kind of thing so that we're, you know,
Yeah.
getting that real time, right?
We have done it in the past and we can probably just keep doing that for everybody.
Yeah,
Because it is
just wherever we
yeah.
post it, that have something that says we're interested in continuing to improve, so.
So we are,
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry.
No, I was just gonna say, do we need a motion then? Are we not quite to that point
So,
yet?
so we can end whenever you'd like, as it is illegal. Is there anything in here that you would like us to address? I heard from board member Rio to add the piece in there. about-
Something around the
Yeah,
plagiarism,
the
right?
plagiarism, the tool, a tool or a checker for teachers. And I also heard, to make sure that when we put this up, we have a feedback loop. So those are two things. Is there something else that you would like for us to add into it? And then also, if there's a motion, I know our LEAs are just really trying to get this out. If we could make the promise to make these changes before it goes to the, as amended, before it goes to the.
So right in the beginning, like on purpose or someplace, right at the top of the document, wherever it's posted, I think it's important to articulate, even in just a sentence, what you were saying a few minutes ago, that this is going to change and it will continue to change. And we are aware of that. We're not living in a Pollyanna world. This is where we're at right now. Good minds are getting together every month, and we appreciate feedback from the field. Concerns that come from wherever will be considered by this ongoing group who are meeting on our Sky group, who are meeting on a monthly basis, and this will continue. Stay tuned, because it's a moving object and it's not gonna, what we think it is right now in our limited view of what AI could become or will become 30 years from now, similar to the internet of 30 years. I mean, it's really been 30 years? Oh my gosh.
No, right?
But
Dials.
what a world we have now as compared to 30 years ago. So we recognize and we're ready. We're just gonna take it a day at a time.
So I wonder within that motion, with the Sky team, we really, it's so in-depth. When we envisioned like starting this and choosing the people for the Sky team, the incredible strengths that the USBE staff have, and it's not even their area. And to know like, it's almost like their hobby and how everything connected back. We couldn't have, it was a miracle, like the right, all of those right pieces were chosen. But my question to you is, as this is going forward, we'll have the feedback loop. At what point would you want us to bring it back when we see something that's and at that point, if it's something small, do we want it to go to committee and full board, or is it just as an information? How would we move forward as it's changing quickly? Would we want it to stay this process? Committee, full board? Would we want to do it every 6 months, every 3? Like, how would that work?
Like a consent calendar? I don't know. It's a good question.
It seems like I would be willing to stop
Do you want a separate item?
transfer of information or concern. So I think that it's an ongoing item.
It's 2 months. Does that make sense? No.
Standards and
It's
Assessment
2 months to
Committee.
get it
Where
to.
we're at, where we're at.
So
You're saying so there's more
anything
discussion.
can be brought forward on
Let's go in front of all.
a
I-
monthly basis,
Yeah.
so that we're not having to store up or all focus towards. We just want to be abreast of what's happened in the last 4 weeks since we were here.
Sorry.
To do that. Okay, does that sound good?
Does that sound okay? We're just saying that if you keep it
We were
as a,
chatting.
But as an open agenda item,
Yes.
so because this
Okay,
is
yeah, yeah.
changing
So
it
every
out,
month we'll update
so
it
that
and it's
we'll
be-
hear on a we don't have to wait for 6 months or 3 months. If something happens next week, our very next meeting, we're gonna hear about
I
the
think
new.
that works for me. And then we're not having to try to, did we miss the agenda? Did we?
Yeah.
right?
It's now against the law.
I think just an open agenda item that, this is.
Okay.
So, and we just may not have anything on it.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
So
okay.
we
I
can
think that's
just
great.
Yeah.
Did you have? Some?
Yeah, I have a question on 5. It's on page 7. I'm on the top of page 7 in the policy. So we use AI to advance academic integrity. I'm wondering, I feel like I saw this somewhere. I don't know if it was here. Students and educators should be truthful in giving credit to sources and tools and honest in presenting work that is genuinely their own for evaluation and feedback. Do we have a way that we reference when AI was utilized, and at what depth is that requirement going to be? And do we add that into our teacher standards? I don't know where that would be applied to, because I know like we have our students make bibliographies for all their resources. I think I've seen where they're developing, it's my daughter, she's actually writing a paper on AI right now.
Nice.
And so they were, if something's filtered through AI or generated by AI, that credit has to be given as a bibliographical.
It's a graphic. And
Yes,
So,
source.
yeah, so when we wrote the policy or our internal policy, it states that if you use the AI, if you use the generative tool, then it needs to be referenced via APA style. I mean, we actually
Yes.
have APA style, and that would be similar to something that's accessed via the web. So when you put in a bibliography, something you've accessed off the web, you know how you put the where you got it. Blah, blah, blah. So it would be similar to that. That's how they've been doing it. That's how
May I add to
yeah,
that? We also say in the staff policy that if you're using AI for idea generation, you don't need.
Yeah.
Right. It's just only if you're getting information from websites. And if you are, you might as well just go back to the website. Like when you are writing, when you're getting your information, you really should be going back to a website to verify it.
double check.
So it's 3 cases, either idea generation, nothing, just use the websites where you found the information, and then APA.
So I'm just wondering if we include that for our teachers eventually, because I do feel like and maybe they already know that because you can find it on the web.
Maybe so. One of the cool things right now, I would love for us at some point to just show the Copilot tool that we're accessing in the agency. But I can actually go on in my internal, the things that are just for me that aren't shared at the agency. I could say, bring up communication with Vice Chair Earl surrounding whatever it is, and it will pull up my emails, and it will pull up little quotes that are within them, and it will say 1, 2, 3. And when I click on it, it sends me to that email, and it'll click on, and it is the coolest thing. So when we start to be able to use it as a tool or a way to find things, instead of going through, oh no, it's not that email, and oh, it's not that email, I can just quickly look at those quotes and go, yeah, that's one, number 3, and it pulls up that number 3 email that it came from. Or it could be a document. I could type into artificial intelligence what we're doing for policy, and it'll bring up emails, and I'll have it search another site, and so it can really help in that research and generation for some efficiencies within the agency. But it's just because I need that information. It's not that it's doing the work for me. So well, it is, but not the thinking part of the work.
Just the busy part.
Yeah, the busy part. Yeah.
The other question I have, and this is a broad overview, it's on page 9, safety alerts. So there was a student that she's from a different country. She said in her daily journal that she just wants the day to end. She was triggered for a suicide flag. And so she was brought in with the school counselor, like, are you okay? It says you want the day to end. And that's actually a term that they use in their country, which means like, oh, I'm so over this. Right? Like, I want the day to end. And so I'm going to apply this to bigger level things. So I read through it's what we have for the US, the Bill of Rights. And that's in our policy document link, so the White House Bill of Rights on AI kind of a thing. So they do talk about biases, prejudices. The thing that I worry again about that is that as we develop our minds and our thinking, typing can be messy. Working our thoughts out and our belief systems can be messy. Living life can be messy. And what I worry is that AI would then begin to isolate or target things that are viewed as not politically correct, or the biases that are on a political hit list or whatnot. And I fear that that could be, and we're seeing in Scotland, they have the hate crime law that is being implemented this month now. And that is the first massive attack on free speech.
Censoring.
Yes,
language
censoring
and thought and stuff.
Yeah. So I fear that this is something, and I'm just going to put it out there as we continue to develop these policies, that we keep our understanding of what free speech is and the ability for students not to have AI become their God that they are, that they check in with, and that's self-censory. We don't want self-censory in the way that we don't expand our minds to be able to grapple difficult subjects. But AI could definitely be a tool that would reprimand students for maybe going outside of a box of the concept of free speech. So do we have any feedback on that? Have you had this conversation?
This is out of my area.
Okay.
Yeah,
So that is a bias, I think.
So that it's here, it's in AI.
We had some of these conversations at CCSSO, the Chief Council of State School Officers, with a group of deputies that were focusing on artificial intelligence. And so we had this conversation as well. And that kind of goes back to the original statement that I made that was so harsh, which is we do have that moral responsibility to populate and put things out there that are truths and data and whatnot, because when everyone has access to populate what's on there and to be able to start saying it's like this should or should not be, then that's what it's going to be pulling from. But you're now seeing even the next step of saying, well, now maybe it's not going to pull from things because it's going to start self-editing. So that's within the prompt writing right now. And generative AI should not, I'll just air quote that, be working in that way right now if we teach our kids to do prompt writing, to be able to say, we want this information. It could, maybe this wasn't your point, we could in schools start to say, they can't, but it's already they can't access pornography. All of these things are already a part of those federal requirements. But to your point, it's growing. That's why this is going to change. We're going to have to start figuring things out. As soon as it can start doing more, we're going to have to start adding more, taking away some things like that. So basically, we don't even need it. So that's why I think that it's such a good idea. This needs to be on every month to update.
Yeah, maybe the data bias needs to have something in it about limiting on free speech or.
And that's where I was
ideas.
trying to get it to.
Do you have some suggested language that you could send our way to add to it? That might be
I
helpful
will,
as well.
yeah. And I've been reading the Scotland thing. I mean, they have statistics on what those numbers look like as far as hate speech and based on race or gender or whatever. It's already being tracked. What I fear is if we're requiring students to do the SEL language lessons, which includes journal writing, and they go in and they say, this person's been rude to me, I hate them, because we do those things when we're angry. And that's our way to get out the ugly thoughts so we can work with better thoughts. If that becomes, then we apply that to the anti-bullying campaigns that we do, we're getting ourselves into a really big mess really quick. So when I talk about ethics and AI, this is what I'm talking about too. How far are we aware of how quickly things could go awry, and do the quality checks associated with that? Because AI has massive potential for monitoring anything that comes from us. And so anyway, just food for thought as we keep developing it.
with journaling, that's something that AI should have access to. So when we talked about those sensitivity labels of what can be pulled and what can't, if maybe we can start teaching our teachers what it shouldn't pull from, it shouldn't be pulling from a student's journal, personal thought. And that should have a different sensitivity label that's only between, maybe it's just the student who's putting their thoughts, maybe it's just the student and the teacher, but it doesn't go outside that. It has a walled garden that doesn't go outside that.
And I guess to apply that, if they already they were able to pull this young girl and say, hey, are you okay? Because that was triggered in their system that she said, I want the day to end. They already have that ability.
Yeah, so we might need to train sensitivity labels of what AI can have access to and who has access to those
Do we have
things.
sensitivity labels listed in here?
So that's part of the newest part, that once we started doing this.
Okay.
Yeah, and we put out our policy, and that's when Katie Chalice and her team that's doing the data, and Erin, and
Yeah.
was like, okay, we need sensitivity labels, and that's why we kind of pushed a pause even more. To be able to say, we need to develop those internally. What does that look like? And that's why we're trying to start saying, okay, what's your W-2? You know, those types of things. Yeah.
Jordan's district's use of school AI it's called classes and groups. And so that's how they define it. So it might be, after we learn a little more, we probably do want to put something in here.
And I'll help with that. I haven't had time to formulate anything.
Okay, thank you.
But if you have suggestions, let's, AAGBs, or do we have any, are there any legal things on this yet within AI that we're aware of? We don't, it's too new. Okay. So, okay, we're building it and keeping it on the agenda every month. We'll just have Andrea just transfer that over. We'll try and do an update on that.
So Randy, you just need a motion.
So we need a motion to approve the AI framework and for the full board.
As
I don't know, for not final approval.
And it's staff to,
Yeah.
okay.
For approval
Okay.
until the next time it's brought for approval.
Okay, I move that the Standards and Assessment Committee approve the AI framework and forward to the full board for final approval, in addition to staff recommendations as discussed in the committee.
Thank you.
Do you think I need to add something on there about us having that continually on here, or is that just something that?
You might just, I listed that as a recommendation.
Okay, and
Yeah, it could just be a recommendation.
Is that part of the
Staff
recommendation?
work, yeah.
okay, so we don't need that then? You don't think? Okay,
Okay, so we have a motion to approve the AI framework here in committee and forward to the full board for approval, along with the suggestions that were made in our discussion today in our meeting. Any further discussion? All right, then let's vote. All in favor, say aye.
sorry.
Aye.
Thank you. It's unanimous. All right, thank you very much for that update and that great presentation. Look forward to ongoing development. We've got our work cut out for us. Don't we? Thank you. All right, we're ready to move on to agenda item 3.4, which is information on schematic standards revision update. Who's going to take the lead on this?
I can. That's okay. Right.
Here you are.
Lindsay
Up here.
Henderson, secondary math specialist. Really excited to talk to you about our work on the standards writing committee progress. So we're on step 6 of the board approved process, which is to assemble the writing committee. And so we had an application that went out for about 30 days. We left it open for quite a while. And we were so surprised to receive 106 applications from people in our community that really wanted to participate. And we were able to, we needed 24 elementary writers, we needed 24 secondary writers, and then we needed people that kind of spanned everything to make sure we had coherence. And we were able to, we had, like I said, we had a huge pool. We had to, we looked at all the qualifications, representation. Every district that applied, we were able to have representation for them on the writing committee, which we felt was I mean, it's just it's so great to have such great support from all around the state, and we wanted to include everybody. We had charter school representation, we had the Department of Workforce Services come for preschool representation. It's been really amazing. So we've sent out notifications to everybody on the committee if they applied and were accepted, if they were applied and waitlisted, if they applied and were going to be a part of the writing committee. And we've identified our leads, and we're hoping to meet with them on
April 15th, we're just waiting for some contracts to be in place. But April 15th is our go date to start with the leads, and just really excited to discuss the review committee recommendations that were received and then the board recommendations that were passed back in February.
Great. Thank you for that update. Any questions for board members?
Yes.
Well, you know, I think it's very interesting being a part of election cycle. There are so many people that come to talk with me in meet and greet kinds of settings who are still living back in the Common Core, 12 years ago. And that nothing has changed except it's gotten worse, particularly in mathematics. And I'm just thinking so much has changed in 12 years. And there are many, many voices being heard. This is not just some decision that was made 12 years ago and there's no progress and no forward motion being made. In fact, one of my opponents is very, very clear that mathematics is gonzo and saying that nothing has been done and nothing is being done. And I hear over 100 applicants in the pool so there's certainly great interest. What a blessing to know that what I've been saying is really true. We really are.
Interest in for sure, right?
106 are interested in making
Yes.
sure that we are cutting edge.
It's a
So
big commitment too. So I was just really pleased to have all of that support. And we have really great metrics too on how our system is thriving, and we're getting lots of national recognition in terms of state to state comparison as being really, we're doing great things for kids math.
And that's one area, because I'm not big on the state to state comparison, and I know we're doing great. I'm big on making sure all kids understand math and that they're succeeding, right? Because I don't care what, Mississippi, Texas, whatever. So I want to make sure, and it's just like our reading, right? That we want to know that every child that's going through, by the time they get to a certain grade, that they have the skills to succeed in higher level math. So we have the production, not production, that sounds like I'm all geared towards, whatever, but they have the ability to be in the highly successful fields, right? Or not, if they choose that, right? But that they have the capacity to do that. So I'm like I said, I'm thrilled that we are, we've been doing well. We didn't decrease like others did. At the same time, we still have 40% at some proficiency rates, right? And just like let's shoot for the 70 and then let's shoot for the 90. So we're getting to those mechanisms that actually create that high level success.
Right, that goes back to the mission statement of board, doors of opportunity for all students.
Yep, and academic excellence.
how can we engage in the math process as we go? So as we hear things like organically come from teachers, their concerns, from parents, their concerns, when we have that committee finalized, how can we engage on the front end of those conversations so that as we develop what we want math to be for Utah, that has been considered at the beginning and we can troubleshoot anything that might be disconnected?
Well, we are doing a lot of, we've done, there's been a lot of surveys that have gone out to the stakeholders, like math leaders, curriculum directors, math teachers. We're gathering that on an ongoing basis. And that's always that's what I used to inform what, I speak about to the community and what we prioritize in that sense. But we also have that, we have the course survey. I believe it goes out in August every year, and I have several years of that. So, and that's parents, students, it's anybody in the general public and teachers too that we get feedback on. I'm also collecting, if people email me, if you forward me concerns, happy to collect.
So we can just
still those
directly email you.
Absolutely.
Okay, because I obviously have my little laundry list too of stuff hey, could we look at some specific things?
So as board members, that should have come in at the board process step. So you all had your opportunity to give our recommendations that then go to the committee. So if you've got.
I'm assuming we can keep doing that too, though.
But that was the process. So I just want to remind us, we have a process for a reason to keep inundating staff with more than the time that that was supposed to come. Like, they're gonna start writing standards based on the recommendations you guys provided.
So if we see standards that might still be missing, we can still engage.
Yeah, like you'll have feedback opportunities. Those are still coming for sure. So in terms of like that front loading.
You're just saying as far as adding more onto the actual writing committee, but if I'm understanding what you're saying, if you're hearing a concern,
Yeah.
is that what you're saying? You would want to make sure that our professionals would understand that.
Whether we're writing standards or not, always sent to us so that we can be aware. And when you hear concerns multiple times, you're like, this is a problem. Because when we hear it once, you're like, okay, could be a severe problem, could be like, okay, let's talk to that school and see what's happening. But when you get it multiple times, let's say board member Earl sends us a similar thing, and you've sent something and somebody else sends it, we're like, ooh, the alarms go off. And we start to think about that. In the standards process, you will have more steps to, board members will get to review the standards and get more feedback before they're released to the public. So that's the next big step. So if you're like, I still see this thing missing that I've heard feedback from the field, you'll definitely get that opportunity there. Not saying you can't send it to Lindsay, but we have to keep in mind the process for the transparency of how these standards get. I don't have a great word.
If I understand, you're just saying we're not adding more on without board approval.
Yeah,
right.
Otherwise, it undermines the authority of the full board. You have a board member saying, do this thing, but it's not a board thing, right? It's one person, which doesn't represent the board, which puts staff in an awkward position. So I'm just protecting myself. If board member Earl emails and says, do this thing, that's not the board, that's a board member. And so we'd have to say, would you like to bring that to the board for consideration to tell us to do that thing? And you guys will have updates every other month in this committee.
That though,
where you could say, we would like this to go to committee, bring that to full board for approval, and then that would go to committee. So those will be.
I really appreciate that question because we became, when that question was asked before, we became very clear, and Andrea created on the document where it shows where the board interacts on the document, right? And maybe we can send that back out to all of you, because before it was only like a couple of times, and now there's built into the process more steps for where the board interacts with it. And would you like for us to send that out of where that's at?
Yeah, like every other month, we're gonna come to this committee. You could be bringing stuff to this committee that then goes to full board and then gets charged to the writing committee. That might be a good vehicle to where it becomes really transparent and the full board weighs in for those recommendations.
So let's send that to you, and then if there's questions, and let us know, and then during our next update meeting, then we'll kind of go through what that looks like and see where you are. You can call.
And if I may generally, just what I keep hearing is that a statistics teacher is in high school and they are, and it's not this warm fuzzy whatever, it's like daring to address that there are issues and it's not perfect, and that's okay.
Yeah.
We develop product. You don't have a good product if you don't get feedback. And so she's retiring 3 years early, which makes me sad. She's really good. Statistics. I mean, she's this level. What she's seeing is she's very frustrated because kids are coming and they don't have those high level skill sets to do statistics. She's just ready to launch these kids, and she can't because there's so much time trying to catch them up. So if we can pay close attention to what those foundational skills are, and then have the conversation at a deep level when those are ideally meant to happen. I'm saying K through 4, K through 5 multiplication. Like if we can get the kids not just conceptualizing 5,000 different ways to do 10 times 10, but they know by reflex that 10 times 10 is 100, right? Like they can look at it. 7 times 3, 7 times 4, whatever, all those, and it's just, they can say it and build that into how we're teaching it so that when they get to higher level math, they're done. It's reflex. They can get into higher concept mathematics. And I am hearing, not just from this one, but handfuls of these high school teachers that are just ready to teach because they geek out about math. And we want those teachers, we want them to stay. But if they can't exist in their job description, doing what they're passionate about and what they're capable of, they're going to retire and they're going to leave. So I would argue as we work with our math committee, like let's have the conversations, because I do feel like the other thing I've seen a lot of curriculum, and And I know there's a billion different ways to teach math, but one curriculum in particular that I had acquired to teach my daughter math. And I got to the point where I was like, are we reading or doing math? I got rid of the math. And what I did is I ordered a 1987 Macmillan math book, and we worked through it through the 4th grade. And and it's repetitive. She learns it. We're moving on to higher level thinking. So it's like, also, could we please balance literacy versus math? Can we please make sure that math is math is math is math? Numbers. So I don't know. And I can send this as a formal, I will send this as.
I actually have, I mean, if you go back and look at our formal requests, they sit in there. I'm just looking down them right now. Fluency in multiplication, division facts by the end of 5th grade, fluency by addition and subtraction by whole numbers at the end of 3rd. And then also, I'm just looking right back down those things that we chose to move forward. Standards and skills will be measured. They'll be actionable, definable, and formally accessible.
So I
That's
guess,
just a couple. So.
yeah, see, thank you. And if I may come back to what you were saying too, because I do want to respect like the flow of this. Absolutely. When can we get to the point where if we see something that's being developed that we want to have a conversation and we can bring it forward as a full board?
So you're
How
going to
can-
be
how and when
seeing
can we do
things
that?
every other month in this committee. So if you are like, oh, I've seen this thing, I have feedback for you, you guys can take action on that and then bring that to full board. And then it goes like the committee will do that thing. You can obviously discuss it. Lindsay can hear the conversation, but if you want actual, I really want something to happen, not just like, Lindsay, that was nice information. I would say this committee will be your kind of conduit for that, which is great. Because then you guys will forward this and we can bring those as discussion items instead of information. And that way discussion allows you to take, I believe it allows you to take action on that.
Yeah. Yes, right.
We bring it as
Discussion allows,
information.
I think you have to have it as an action. We can always have it as an action.
You can just bring it as action.
And just bringing back to what that process looks like, here's, in my mind, I have this table in front of me and you've all, Standards is familiar with the table. And so it would have like, here's the writing committee, and then it would say, motions or, amendments, recommendations, and then it would have whatever you have there. So the committee could discuss it. So you could sit in along the way. We track it and then we put it into that document and you would, so that we have it here to discuss and to move forward. So that way it formalizes it. It makes it transparent because before we had that transparency in that table, then sometimes folks would, email in or whatever, can you do this? And it's like, oh yeah, that's a quick change. But then you bring it and it's like, how come you change this? And you're like, well, because, and so as staff, we can't do that. We would be able to add it to a table of concerns or whatever to bring to this committee to be able to do. So I think, so Dr. Thornton needs to bring that up.
We'll be happy to figure out how to do that. I think the process affords for it because we have the committee check-ins every 2 months. So basically we're going to check in with you. This is an info item, I think this time, but we can in the future bring them as action items. And then if you have any action, and you could just report no action to the board for that next month, or there was action, and now we can have a full board discussion on that action to be able to move it forward to charging.
Lindsay,
I would imagine it, right?
It might be good just to forward us our recommendations.
Oh, yeah.
At the committee, do you know what I mean? And then I think it may, I think we hit those things that with the board.
So far what
before,
you're
so.
saying is in the.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's, and heavily emphasized to it, and then like really did fine.
Multiple times.
Well, Lindsay, thank you very much for that update.
you.
I appreciate it. Now, item 3.5, we have action item 277-469, Instructional Materials Commission Operating Procedures Amendment. Carrie, would you like to give any
Yes.
update?
We had a very active legislative session this year, and it was quite surprising to have them talk about different commissions that they wanted to change. And so with that action in the legislative session, it affected this board rule of R277-469. So we've been looking at the rule to see how that affects it. And we're here to talk about changes that will constitute an effect of the Materials Commission.
Okay. Great.
Do you want me to move? Do you want me to move something? I'll move draft 2, that we take a look at it. And, okay, fine. And I can kind of just walk down through some of the things I had suggested, noticing that it is a category 3. And I've kind of just looked at those 4 categories and saying, does this fit in this category 3? And after going back and forth, I think it does. We do have staff appointed for it, but it's also not something we monitor on a yearly basis. So I personally felt like that was the appropriate movement there. And I'm gonna go down to, so some of the changes I would recommend on 56, that line 56, glasses here, that in the law, it's not just objective sensitive materials, but it is sensitive materials that are not allowed. So it incorporates both of those, and they're the sensitive and objective. We struck, and then throughout the document, the commission struck. So I'll go down to the next one. So then at 120, just adding a definition in that comes right from the law of what sensitive materials are. Especially when there was change in the code. Let's see, I don't know if those blue links there aren't additions though, are they?
No, they're links. There is the one on line 131. We did add that.
Oh, okay. I was like, because I'm having a hard time figuring out which ones we've added now that they're the same color. Yeah, and then just adding in section, just related to the House Bill 261, and which section is it? 53G, it's not the 105, is it 10? It's not 103. Is it 53E4, 403?
53G2 105 is the prohibited discriminatory practice.
Okay, so it is the 2105. So that's the prohibited discriminatory practices that are listed in the law. And then, let's see, down on 198, we're just referencing the law there, which has to do with ethnic studies instead of putting a specific piece in there. Just referencing the law, because there's pieces that the USBE does and pieces that a district may do, and that's all this is under this section. May consider whether the instructional materials, and then they list those out. And just because of our discussion yesterday, I feel like it's important to notice that on line 191, on C, it says our high quality research based and proven to be effective in supporting student learning. This is where we have the feedback, the rubric, and everything for our high quality instructional materials. It's not a separate outside entity that does that for us. This is what we use. It's interesting, we had it in committee today where we talked about it yesterday. Let's see where else. 204, line 204, I submit we add are not prohibited discriminatory practices according to the law that just passed. And then we updated it according to 53G 10 103, just about that. And are there any other? That might be it. And then of course the recommended removing the commission. So I just submit that we move that forward unless anybody has any recommendations or suggested changes.
Any questions, comments? Board Member Rio?
Yeah, I don't have any specific questions or comments. I just my biggest piece coming into this was just making sure that we're not creating a gigantic burden on USBE with our new responsibilities within the new law. And grateful for Member Earl creating this draft and staff clarifying that, because I want to be protective over the resources, the time, staff time, and the money that it takes to go through these review processes. So everything looks good on my end.
And I just this was the question asked, in removing that commission, does all of this fall onto one staff member? And I think that's what Board Member Reel's asking. And maybe if you do just a quick summary, because this is what I asked you, and you're like, no, this is how we do the process, so that maybe the public and others understand that just getting rid of the commission doesn't mean one person's making all these decisions. And then the commission was just a secondary piece to what was being done, from what my understanding was.
Yes, so when we review instructional materials, and these are instructional materials that educators use in the classroom, it's a little bit different than library materials. So when we're talking about instructional materials in this rule, we're talking about the materials that educators use in the classroom, such as textbooks. There's a list in the rule that lists out what we review. But because we have so many materials coming into the state, this last fall, we had approximately 150 just main titles, but then we had a whole bunch of ancillary items under those. So when you add all of that, you're looking at 400-ish items that we're doing. So we hire professionals in the field that are in those certain content areas that we're reviewing to, as a team, to review a certain amount of materials. And sometimes English may have 3-4 teams, or math may have 4 or 5 teams to review all of those materials. And then we take all of those reviews from those teams, it's put into, they collaborate on what they want to write for their evaluation, and they put one evaluation into the RIM system. To then we make the report, and then before, in past history, we would have the commission members review the report, and then they would approve or make changes as needed, and then it would go to the full board. And so that's what the process was up until just recently, and that's why we're coming here to talk about the changes in the board rule.
And the other thing is, it comes before us when they make those recommendations. The board itself gives the thumbs up, thumbs down twice a year, once in the fall, once in the spring, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So we do 2 cycles. It takes approximately 6 months to do a cycle.
It's I knew people on the commission, so I was like, it's a lot of work. There's a whole garage full of stuff.
Thank goodness we get to review those virtually online. So it's all electronic submissions these days. These days.
Very interesting.
Yes.
I just have a clarifier, is when superintendent shows up, is that like Sid Dixon or?
Yeah, so in the rule,
Would be staff.
superintendent represents staff.
Okay.
The designated person, which
Like
I
USB,
think-
not like local.
Correct. Right.
Right.
Any other questions? All right, so do we have a motion?
I would make a motion that, get to the right language. Sorry, okay, I move that the committee approves R277461 draft 2 on
469.
6-9.
Oh, did I click on the one? Oh, sorry. R277469 draft 2 on first reading and forward to the board for approval on second and final reading.
All right, so we have a motion that the committee approve R277469 draft 1 on first reading.
Draft 2.
Draft 2, I'm sorry, it's on first reading and forward to the board for approval on second and final reading. Any further questions?
I do. I'm so sorry. So on line 186. Going back to like maybe our discussion that we were having yesterday when like 127 says the board, this says the board capitalized. Does that mean?
What line is it again?
186. 6. It's 469-6. There we go. Does that mean
Sure.
the board means us as a board or staff as the board? You as the board.
So we in our rules, we use superintendent for staff, and then board means you all. So we would be bringing, when the legislature uses board, that could mean staff. So it's confusing.
Okay, all right, okay, I just wanted to make sure, that's all I had.
All right, great. With no further questions, let's vote. All in favor, say aye.
I
Aye.
Thank you. Voting is unanimous. Thank you very much, Terry. And thank you, Board Member Earl, for your work with that. We're now ready to move to action item R277628 School Libraries Amendment. Yeah.
Committee meeting, so.
Just let me know, I will fix it.
Oops, I didn't know.
Right. Karina, do you want to give us just a little bit of a background?
Sure. So Davina Southall, Library Media Specialist, teaching and learning. So HB 29 was passed this year, which was some amendments for the sensitive materials, instructional materials that HB 374 modifies 53G10-103. And there's just some things that would create some changes to our board rule, just to give LEA some guidance as to how we're going to implement a process in compliance with that, those amendments. And, yeah.
One other thing, and I don't know, Elise, if you want to talk about the oversight category, which is also being added to this.
Oh, right. So similar to the last one, we added the category 3 for rule 277628 because we do have quite a bit of oversight, but not like a max scale. So we chose category 3.
Do you want me to talk down through the
Please do.
changes? Okay. And there was a suggestion, Elise had a suggestion to change from school libraries to sensitive materials because almost the whole rule does not deal just with libraries. And even in schools themselves, when they do their evaluations, it's not materials in school libraries. It could be, that's usually where they're coming from, but because of school setting being in the law, it's the suggestion was to change it to sensitive materials rule. So
Great.
and then just down into the purposes, added some, well, you can see the instructional materials listed in a library throughout the document. And this is from the law to prioritize protecting children from the harmful effects of illicit pornography. This is line 15, over other considerations in evaluating instructional materials. And then what is our purpose? To provide a process for statewide removal and of objective materials. That's why we're writing this. And to provide a process for compliance and reporting. So those are adding those in, those intents.
Remember,
Yes.
is it necessary to put line 15 and 16 in? Is it, I mean, is there, because, I mean, I understand, but it feels maybe a little bit, I don't know, it feels like it's language that isn't necessarily as needed in the rule. So it just would say like accompanying procedures for instructional material selection and reconsideration, and then provide a process for statewide removal, and then provide a process for compliance and reporting. So removing the protecting children from the harmful effects, basically, is what I was. It just, when as I was reading this over last week, it just felt like it the tone and the way it was written felt a little out of place.
I would say this, I mean, it can be taken from there. It is added in at another spot. So if it just wants to stay general in that section, meaning that,
Yeah.
do you know what I mean? The purpose is more generalized, but I would like, it is added in another spot, and line 54
I guess
So-
my thing is that, like, when we're talking about these materials, like obviously pornography is one category of materials that we don't want students to have access to, but there's also like other, you know, violence and all these other things. And so it just feels a little odd to call it out there when we're kind of talking on this broad view of the entire rule.
That's fine. It is sensitive materials rule, meaning that that's what the focus is around sensitive materials. It's not, those other broad things are there, but
right.
the primary focus is on that. So To me, it doesn't matter if it's here, but it does matter to me if it's down in the other section.
For
Yeah, on 54, because it is part of the prioritizing of the reason why we're doing this is not just First Amendment speech, but it is because we're protecting the priorities of protecting children.
Yeah,
So,
no, 54, it actually fits better there, but the first
Okay,
part, it
I'm
felt a little out.
fine with that. Any
Okay.
other?
No, that was it. It's just as you were going along.
Okay, I know.
We need to do that as a motion to
Yeah,
change that.
probably would need to make a formal amendment there. So,
So
all
if you
right.
could quick on that.
Yeah,
Make a motion to delete to prioritize protecting children from the harmful effects of illicit pornography over other considerations in evaluating instructional materials from line 15 and 16.
All right, we have a motion to delete, to prioritize protecting children from the harmful effects of illicit pornography for other considerations in evaluating instructional materials from lines 15 and 16 of draft 2 of R 277-628 sensitive materials. Is there any question or any further discussion?
I kind of do. And I think this could come to how we're changing.
Maybe speak up a little so they can hear over them.
Oh, sorry. I'm trying to understand just the word instructional material. Okay, I'm just gonna run something past you. Like if there's a book that has the, illicit material in it and it's in a library, but it's not being used for instruction, does taking school libraries out and replacing it with instructional material put us in a quandary on that argument?
I can answer that for you.
Yeah.
Is it okay if I answer
Yeah.
that? Because we're referring to the definition in the law on lines 24 and 25. It's broader than libraries. It says this in that definition that is referred to in 25 says this applies to materials outside of libraries as well.
So that that's the quality check is there.
It's broader than
We're not gonna
libraries.
put ourselves in a place where argument can happen, because that would affect my vote on that.
Yeah.
So.
Do you want me to read the definition of instructional materials?
Yes.
Okay, this is what it says in the law. It says means material regardless of format. Oh, you've got it right there. So I don't need to read it, but.
Go ahead.
Okay, we'll do it for the public.
Yeah.
So, used as or in place of textbooks or to deliver curriculum within the state curriculum framework for courses of study by students or to support a student's learning in any school setting. Instructional material includes reading materials, handouts, videos, digital materials, websites, online applications, and live presentations. Instructional material does not mean exclusively library materials. And that's kind of the idea of changing our language at the first here from library to sensitive materials.
Instructional, okay. All right, thank you.
Is that broad enough to cover what you're looking at?
Just, yeah. So since HB 374 went into effect in 2022, our guidance has been to classroom educators that this law applies to anything they have in their classroom. So this actually, in my mind, clears up some of the confusion I had about why our rule was titled school libraries when actually it has affected all the materials within the building. So I think this is a good change to make it more clear for LEAs.
Excellent. All right, thank you for that question. We're ready to vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I
Any opposed?
I'm an aye.
We're all an aye. Okay, that was unanimous. Thank you. Moving on.
Okay, then the definitions just put in, let's see, we have objective sensitive materials, we have school settings, sensitive materials, subjective sensitive materials. So they're all outlined there as they are in law. And also reference back to law so that we know what those are. And then also I'm adding in school community parent is a parent who has a student currently attending the school where the challenged instructional material is being reviewed in accordance with, and then referring back to the law as it references that so that, we don't have someone that's maybe in a charter school that is still in the boundaries, but then comes in and says, oh, I'd like to be part of the committee or whatever, that kind of thing, when their student doesn't attend the school. So just trying to create some clarity there.
Thank you.
Let's see, then down, I'm just going down further to like, okay. Okay, we'll talk through these. The only reason why I'm saying that is because it's making sure we're clear on the law and everything. So if anybody has any elements that we didn't get quite right, because I've gone back with Davina on a few of these and Patty and Elise, and making sure we're just really tight on what the law says and what it says. We just want to make sure the language is there. So on the third section, policy and accompanying procedures for school instructional material selection. Okay. I just want to make sure I'm following through here. Okay, so an LEA shall, we're adding to that. So they're in their policy, establish a policy and accompanying procedure for the selection and reconsideration of instructional materials selected for the school that is consistent with state law and federal law. That's one piece. Does not prevent an LEA from revisiting a previous decision, reviewing a recommendation of LEA personnel or a parent-related committee regarding the challenged instructional material, or reconsidering a challenged instructional material if the LEA governing board receives additional information regarding the material. And this is, Davina had suggested we put that in there because these are the pieces she gets frequent questions about. That already in the law, we could just say go to the law, but these are the things that people are asking a lot of questions. So just articulate them here, right? Felt like this was it says these are important: the revisit, the reviewing, and the reconsidering. Any questions on that language, or did we get the language right?
That's good.
Yeah, it looks good to me.
Parent-related committee and LEA committee, or could it be any committee, any parents from any organization coming in?
That's a good question. Reviewing a recommendation.
Yeah, that's actually a good question because I like how we clarified the school community above. I wonder if we could do similar.
Is that separate or not? I just don't want to make sure so we could put school community parent.
Yeah.
Yeah, because and I know it is like different, but it could be good to, because I think that was one of the concerns that a lot of folks had, that either non-parents or parents from other school communities were coming in to school communities and pulling books or materials. Sorry.
So if I'm understanding, the recommended amendment would be striking parent-related committee and adding in school community parent. Does that do it or not? Does that has the LEA?
It's the LEA parent.
LEA parent committee. Okay.
You could reference line 28, just so there's no.
Okay, let me look.
It's more restrictive if you reference 28. I think you want to say it's the LEA's parent-related committee.
Just so we'd strike personnel or parent. So it'd be
LEA after A LEA parent.
Okay, LEA personnel or an LEA parent-related committee.
Yep, and LEA. Yes.
Yeah.
Does that feel right? Okay, I'd make
Is that kind of a friendly, or do we need to make that a motion?
Any objections?
No objection.
Okay,
That's good.
just want to make sure that's clear. So thanks, Patty, for doing that. Okay, then the next piece would be that they would also prioritize protecting children from the harmful effects of illicit pornography over other considerations in evaluating instructional materials. Okay, and
Question though.
yeah.
What would you define as a parent-related committee?
I can just say, like, in LEAs, there's different committees that parents are on, so they can come in and there would be
I mean, they have parent-related to me is related to sensitive materials. So they have parent committees who review sensitive materials in our LEAs now. That's how I would interpret this, and maybe we need a definition, but parent-related committee means related committee to this sensitive material, and they've gathered parents to help with that.
And I guess it does kind of spell that out regarding a challenged instructional material, but I don't know if it needs to be looked at further. Is that what they're calling them? Is that what they're calling them?
Challenged instructional material.
No, that's probably true. That clarifies it.
Okay.
I guess, could line 135 through 137 be interpreted that just anyone who is a parent, whether their kids are, old or.
I think it's referring back to the LEA itself, their policy. So it has to be something about
A parent who's not a parent in their
I just want to
community.
make sure that they are not just a parent in the community, so but that they have children in the LEA
Oh, you're
and
going
they are,
back.
you get what I'm saying there? And I don't know if we need to clarify it or if it's already clear.
Well, down on 62, so this, are we on objective? Sorry, I need to look. Establish a policy procedures and reconsider. So this is broader. This could be any of those, right? The reviewing, the revisiting, and the reconsidering.
Go back up to line 28, the school community parent.
So that's referring to those who can make a challenge.
On the subjective.
My interpretation is that when they reflect, it's reflective of the school community, isn't as clear as maybe we would like it to be, that it should only be a parent who has a student within the LEA. So
Yes, you just nailed it. That's what I've been trying to say, but you said it way better than I did.
And that's
Say
where
it one
lines
more time, 'cause
28,
I'm not-
29, right? That's what lines 28, 29 say, is that right?
are you talking about the bill?
No, right here.
Yes. So that is referring to who can make a challenge.
Right.
And the law doesn't really give us more definition than that. It's just reflective for who can sit on a committee to review the challenge. So we're talking about two different things, making the challenge and reviewing the committee or reviewing the material in a committee. So I think what I'm maybe hearing from all of you in some form or fashion is that maybe where it says must be able to revisit, can we go back down to those three right here? Yeah, where it's talking about a parent-related committee, is that we want to clear up here that this can only be like parents who are within the LEA, who have a student within the LEA can be on this committee. Is that?
Yes, that's what I would like. That's what I've heard from a lot of my districts, is that they were bothered by a lot of just, people who are parents who have children, but don't have children, school age children in their LEA that were challenging books, which means it's not really reflective of the students who are in the LEA and those parents having a say. It was just parents that are in the community, but not necessarily with children in the schools.
I think the law actually outlines, maybe, is that Michelle? I was gonna say, yeah, the law actually outlines who can and can't challenge materials.
That's different than a committee makeup of the committee.
Yeah.
It does define that, who can make the challenge. It's up at the top of the law, like.
Okay, I think that's what Sarah was talking about with that challenge piece.
I was just going to say what she changed it to make it, that I understand that in the law, it's very specific that the parent has to have a child enrolled in the LEA in the school to make the challenge. The statement is a little more general in the part where it's reviewing the challenge. They need to be reflective of the community. But if you in your rule use the same, they will be reflective of the community. If you choose school community parents that you defined school community parents to be a parent who has a student enrolled in that school or LEA.
Yeah.
And that would be for the whole rule, so that if you use school community parents, like she suggested on line 51, like Elise just typed in there as a suggestion on line 51, the LEA committee made up of school community parents, then you've limited it to parents who have an
Clears
interest.
it up, because then we're not trying to figure out what parent related versus school. Yeah.
Okay, then you use that.
That's very good.
How does
That would.
how do LEAs determine who's on the school community?
That's an LEA decision in their policy. They would have to have that in their policy. In the model policy, it has that.
Yeah, they all have different mechanisms for doing that.
And that's, I guess, why I wanted it to be clear, so that when they are making their model policy, that they understand that piece. But I think that if as a non-lawyer, if it feels like it's clear, then I'm good with that.
putting school community parents is defined above. And so you're using the same definition for both who can challenge it and who you want on your committee. You want parents who actually have kids enrolled there, that they are reflective of the community because they really have kids enrolled there.
Thank you. I think that's good.
And
Are you
did that
okay?
clear up your questions? Okay.
All right.
All right.
Back to you.
Yeah. So down on line 62, it's just ensuring that, and this is specific to the law, ensuring that the subjective instructional materials includes school community parents. So it's kind of that subjective section after you've gone through the other reviews and stuff is reflective of that. Then the LA reporting compliance, and there's some questions to be asked here of this group, but the recommendation is that for the purpose of determining whether material has been removed before July, because the law allows us, if there's previous decisions that and they meet the threshold, that they would notify us. Okay, and then we would do the measurement tool stuff. So this is what the LEA's piece is. Should I just read down through it? For purposes of determining whether a material has been removed by the LEA prior to July 1st, 2024, meets the threshold described in the law. An LEA shall report to the board a removal of the material based on the objective sensitive material determination, if the LEA has sufficient information to support the determination. And then, notwithstanding subsection 1, an LEA need not reevaluate or go through a whole new process to make determinations. And then on 3, an LEA's, that, just strike the S, I think.
Oh, yes, sorry.
An LEA shall do an initial review as described in, so if they don't have they could go back and do that initial review piece, right? Which the initial review is taking 2 personnel, so back online. That's that initial piece where it says in the law that they can determine by looking at it that they could meet the sensitive materials objective criteria. So that's what that would be referring to. So they could use those individuals to meet that criteria for all materials removed before July 1st. Then on the 4th, after July 1st, 2024, if an LEA determines that a challenged instructional material constitutes objective sensitive material, the LEA through an appointed designee using the form provided by the superintendent shall report the determination and rationale to the superintendent. So in talking to Davina, it's good to have one person that she's contacting with the LEA so that she's not getting lots of different pieces of information, and that the superintendent, meaning Davina, will put together one form in order to engage with that capacity.
For one addition.
Yeah.
The statute says that they're supposed to report allegations and determinations. So can we add, report the allegation and determination?
Yep. So we need that in 2 or 3 spots, or just, we need, every time we say determination, do we need allegation? I guess is that.
You're right, because they had to determine it either way. But I just want to make sure they understand that even if they determined that they were going to leave the book on the shelf, they still need to let us know as USBE that they went through that process.
Yes.
So that's why I want.
Yeah,
where do you want this allegation and determination? Because I don't want them to think that they only have to give us a determination if they determined it was sensitive or objective.
So do we just need to remove objective from that? Because the language that we've been using has been a challenged material. And then we go on to say constitutes objective sensitive material. They're actually having to report both.
But they're supposed to also report if neither. If they don't decide either, but if they don't decide, if they decide this is not sensitive or objective, or this is not objective or subjective sensitive material, but we reviewed it and we want to leave it on the shelf. They're still
should we do, so do we want to outline 3 pieces, the objective, subjective, and allegations? Because we have to identify the objective. We can't just identify.
Correct.
Yeah.
They need to give us the allegation and the determination. That's why I think the statute says
Yeah.
there's that we need to give an interim, a report of allegations and determinations. Just so you guys as a board have the information that you're required to report to Ed Interim.
Gotcha.
You're supposed to report to them the allegations and the determinations.
I think on 76 through 79, we could actually just say that after July 1st, an LEA will report all challenged materials.
And determinations.
And determinations, and we say and rationale. She'll report the allegations. Like,
okay.
I don't think we have to actually say what the determination was because that's going to come to us anyway. We're just saying report all challenges, the rationale for the decision and the outcome, the determination.
I revised line 77 through 79. Does that fit what you're talking about?
This is on July 1st, the LEA through an appointed. Yeah, I think so. Do you need allegations there too?
No, I think report all challenges means.
Okay, okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
One other, may I? One other thought. So on line 76, we say after July 1st, and I was getting a little confused of like, well, this also applies to before July 1st. So I wonder if we should on line 68 start with before July 1st for any, or for something to clear it up that for any determinations that were made before July 1st, we have to report. Does that make sense?
I'm not following, but it's probably making sense.
So the line 68 through 73
are the befores,
is referring to everything that was done prior to even really today. Really since the law went into effect. So I think just so we have a before July 1st, we're doing this, and then after July 1st, we're doing this. That's my only maybe suggestion, just so it's clear that you still have to do something now if you're an LAA. I just don't want that to get lost. And maybe it won't get lost because I'll be sending
What would you change to do that then? Because I feel like it spells that out, but if you don't feel like it's clear
It's
enough.
the type of sentence it is. It's called a soft sentence. I can't remember the right English term, but it's called a sentence. It's yeah, so it should be prior to, but this starts with the for purposes of. So it's, does that make sense? So it's not parallel to the one below. I don't know the English term because
I'm not sure what you want changed either.
Yeah.
So is what you're asking for that they report all challenges and.
It's okay. We don't have to engage that. It's all right. It was just,
if you think it need, I mean, after we move it forward, if you still think it needs more clarity, and or if you can work something through, I still see it's saying prior to do these. Now you have to do
it
this.
is saying that.
If you look at line 77, it says after July 1st, 2024. So in the first one, 69, prior to July 1st, 2024, LEA shall remove material. Does that make sense? So it's just stating it right in front. So yeah, so it's not, it's just the organization of the sentence.
So you would just add prior to July 1st, 2024.
Oh, I see.
You could even leave the, for purposes of determining after that point, but now when you quickly look at it, you see before July 1st, I have to do this. And
Okay, you're just saying move that, the sentence.
Yeah.
So we don't get lost because for purposes of determining whether.
Yeah.
Did you catch that, Elise? Can you move the prior
Yeah.
to July 20? Okay, you're probably already doing it. Yeah, just to the first.
We'll have to rework the sentence more.
Okay.
Because you can't just plug that in, it won't make sense.
The reasoning behind this particular structure was that the question from LEAs is, what about all of the materials that were predetermined, right? So it's not just what do we report prior to, but as the legislature defined those previous materials. Does that make sense? Like, so I think we can move it, but we'll just have to like rework the sentence. That's all. I can do that.
So for materials prior determined, you'd have to say for materials determined prior, for materials with the determination prior to. So I don't think you're going to be able to put prior to July 1st as the beginning words.
Challenge prior to. Yeah, there we go. It still gets on that first line, right? In
Yeah.
very, can't remember the passive, it was a passive sentence. There we go.
That's gonna be hard to change.
Yeah.
It's hard to change.
End of that, if you remove that piece, and don't remove it yet, but if you, at the end of the whole sentence, then say, for the state board to determine if the materials meet the threshold, or however we say that. So for challenges, for materials challenged prior to July 1st, 2024, an LEA shall report to the board a removal of the material based on the objective sensitive materials for
Sorry.
purposes of determining whether a material was removed that meets the threshold described in section 53G-10-103.
Sorry. Does it make sense though? Let's see, for materials challenged prior to the board. And then yes, sufficient information to support the determination. Yeah, it's not, the end part's not quite there yet, huh? LEA has sufficient information to support the
Determination and determining right next to each other. That's clunky.
word.
To support.
Could be to support.
Would this be better to say rationale since we're using rationale below? To support the.
Rationale.
But it's gonna be based on whether they have it.
Yeah, that's true.
Documentation, actual documentation.
Makes sense to go sensitive material determination if the LEA has sufficient information for purposes of.
Yeah, and then kind of with that case, for
Erase that
purposes
middle
of
mark there.
determining whether a
Sufficient
removed
information
material meets the
to
threshold.
determine whether a removed material. I
Meets
just,
the threshold.
yeah. So that's the reads, we have three determined there.
Well,
Excited.
it says to support the determination for purposes of determination, so
Yeah.
just get rid of one or the other. Either to support the determination or for purposes of, just,
And I don't know if we need has sufficient information because they still are going to potentially do an initial review.
I do think you need to because they might not have kept enough detailed information to be able to tell you whether it met
The
that
standard is.
subsection 1, subsection 2,
Then
subsection
shouldn't they still be doing an initial review to make that determination?
We just said after that, they don't need to redo of their determination.
But they shall do an initial review as described for all
Based on the
materials.
information they already have, so that they don't have to reconstitute the committee that their policy made them put together. Because
Right.
if their policy made them put a committee together to do this, then you're making them redo the whole thing over again.
Okay.
So I think you do need that they have sufficient information.
So an LEA shall report to the board a removal of the material based on the objective sensitive material determination. If the LEA has sufficient information to support the determination for purposes of deciding whether a removed material meets the threshold described in section.
still seems like a lot. Like, I'm not sure, I got lost, so. Is it,
What if you said determination of, took out like for purposes of deciding, determination of whether a removed material meets the threshold? Does it still make
Yes.
sense if you just put of instead of that?
I like it.
Let's read it.
Sufficient information to support.
is it the right? Tense and 6970 for materials challenged prior to July 1st, an LEA shall report to the board a removal of the material. So it's singular. Does that make sense, Josh?
Challenges prior to July 1st.
Sorry, I made that change.
Material.
Based on the objective sensitive material destination. Is there
There may be a
a
comma there.
Yeah,
After determination, material determination, comma, if the LEA has sufficient information to support the determination.
Of which the LEA has sufficient information.
Say that again.
I just thought that on the end of line 70, so on the objective sensitive material determine of which the LEA has sufficient information. It looks like they're connected, but they're not. So if the LEA has sufficient information to support the determination, the board is doing the second half of the sentence and the LEA is doing the first half of that sentence. So it feels a little bit complicated to me. So could we add to support the state board's determination?
The state board doesn't determine.
Okay.
The
So
LEA
it's just a
determines all of it,
threshold.
and the state board just
The
collects
state
the
board is
information.
determining whether the
No,
threshold
the
is
state
met.
board does not.
Okay.
The LEA.
This is my naivety.
No,
So
the LEA makes that determination. The state board's role is to collect the information.
Okay. Okay, so we're not
State board
determining
doesn't.
it then?
Nope.
So is that word?
So you don't want to put the state board in there. That's
So we
all
don't
what
want
the LEA is
determination
doing.
in there either?
All of that's what the LEA is doing.
Okay. Does that make sense?
It makes sense. I like that.
Then we're good.
Okay, so then, that's what I told you. But the thing too, okay, then you got the 30 days, right? And the reason why originally I was thinking 10 or something to report to us, but there is a chance for an appeal process at the local level. We wouldn't want to get something reporting to us, a threshold that gets met and then put it out for LEAs and then there's an appeal that goes through. Does that make sense?
Appeal to happen first.
So we gotta do a 30-day here is what I was thinking. Does everybody?
Sounds great.
And that's it, okay. Or, so it's 30 days, or if an appeal is in process and at the conclusion of an appeal that upholds the challenged instructional material as objective sensitive materials. Materials that are removed by an LEA in violation of sensitive material law shall either be sent to by the LEA to the state board, library specialist, or returned to the publisher, which we had some discussion around this, so yes.
Right, so it's back a line to 81.
Did I?
No. After we changed line 77 to have them report all challenges, do we want them to report all appeals process conclusions as well? So just delete the second half of that sentence. If an appeal is in process at the conclusion of the appeal, period.
I think that makes sense.
Okay. Sorry.
So then, just the question here, whether we do 5 or not, is whether or not, and for me, it's what happens to those sensitive materials once they're deemed not usable. Does that make sense?
I hate to put our people in charge of all of that. Let the LEA be the grown-up and take care of it however they need to take care of it.
Okay, so maybe 5 we don't need at all. I just don't want to hand it out to kids when we're not using these anymore. Here you go.
Removed from the school property or something like that. If you want something that says it's like, because it's by assigning a role, I don't know what Davina's gonna do with all this illicit prerogatives.
I know I'm just thinking, and it doesn't have to be a publisher.
Yeah,
I know it'd be back to the vendor, somehow letting the vendor know, look, I think there has to be an accountability factor, but I'm not sure.
If you say dispose of it.
Shall be disposed of. So, but what I'm saying is something haul and get information of what they should do with it. And we could give them
surplusing
advice of, we used to have a recycle place where we would recycle instructional materials or whatever. That's gone away. But, you know, Davina can give advice on library materials. I could give advice on the other instructional materials like what teachers use, textbooks and that kind of stuff. And there might be several different ways that they could get rid of it. I don't know if you're trying to accomplish one or two, there's 2 different things in this.
One is the book's no longer at the school. Two, the publisher's been notified. Do we have anything within this at all that says a publisher should be notified?
No, and I don't know if it
And I
needs to be
think-
publisher,
yeah.
it might be vendor.
And so I think
You're talking
that's
the law
Yeah.
or with it,
And
not
so
the
I
law.
think that was what you just said, is we have to have some accountability towards the publisher or the vendor, whoever.
Yeah.
So I don't see anything in the law, so that would be something maybe that would be added if you'd like to be able to add something like, and notify the, whatever.
I'm just throwing this out there for discussion.
Yeah,
This is
no,
just-
no,
I would like it, I
It
don't,
would be hard for
Yeah,
a librarian to know who the vendor was of a book that has been in the library for 10
yeah,
years.
that's true.
You know
It's
what I
been-
mean?
Well, yeah, most of these have new releases, but
So are books removed by an LEA or disposed of? So are they just removed from, and where do they go in there? Is that what you're trying to?
that's what I'm asking this group.
Put
It's,
them in the streets.
I don't have any idea. I just
Are
don't
we
want to.
worried? Are we worried that if they're in a back room somewhere at the LEA, that like kids could still have access to them? Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yeah, or if they getting rid of them, they just distribute them to kids, which I don't think would happen, but I'm not so sure it wouldn't happen.
It's like with our libraries every year, they clear out books and you can either buy them or they just kind of give them away. Oftentimes we're paying a nickel a book or 25 cents a book or whatever. So that's the possibility. The other thing that I wanted to run past you is that we had just voted on a little while ago about what materials and what to do with textbooks. There used to be the system that was in place where they have to let us know where that's going, and I didn't vote for that one to go through because I liked the accountability of where do these textbooks go. So I was wondering, does this have anything to do with that as well, where we don't have that check? I'm seeing a hand.
So, dealing with textbooks, we've had a problem in the past. And the reason why we don't deal with the vendor is because, and we deal straight with the publisher, and they let us know what they would like to have us do with them. A lot of times they've been discarded in a dumpster or recycled into ground up paper or whatever. But as far as textbooks go, if this happens, we would report back to the processes that we would report back to the publisher what the issue is, and then we would talk about what the next solution is. Getting the idea from the publisher that we will no longer use them and we'll either discard them or.
Well, I think the materials these days are digital. So it's just nothing to discover, you just don't receive it forward in the instructional materials case. So for textbooks, everything we receive, we don't allow actual materials to be sent to us anymore. They have to be digitally provided. And so at the state level, we don't have anything to dispose of. We just say we have not approved this material and it goes away in the virtual world. Now, the school space, I think something such as dispose of the materials, which it was. Maybe you just want them shredded.
In previous history, if they got the materials through the book depository, then we have notified the book depository and they send out a notice of a recall of all those books. So they have on record who got the books from them. And then they round up all those books and then have taken care of them.
See, I think there's something to this that we're not continuing to buy something that does that make sense? So I'm trying to figure out, and I don't know if this is it, right? It was just trying to create that accountability piece where, just like you're saying, if someone's they can't be sold in Utah or whatever, we're notifying someone or we're doing something that allows for that to happen. Now, what that is, I don't know. I was thinking just send the books back to the publisher because that's a clear sign we don't want these, but I don't know if that's the
Process. So follow an LEA.
and maybe it is just
process,
they
yeah.
develop a process
Because
that's in there.
I'm thinking of in Davis where if there was like personally identifiable information or whatever, we had a process of stuff that went to the burn plant. Like that, it's not even that you shred it, it goes to the burn plant. And so I think other LEAs would probably have a similar process about what is sensitive, what can go here and what they, so. maybe
But I
that's
just wanted, I don't want kids to then access it, right? Whether it's sitting in a back room because they removed it off the shelf, you've got a library aid or whatever, right?
So it's a disposal process, right? It's not just a removal process.
So we do have what we call a surplus process, and like Follett is one of our biggest vendors here in the state. And what they do is like once or twice a year, they send out an email that says, hey, we're coming around to pick up any of your books that you're surplusing, and they'll pick them up and take them away. And so that is a vendor.
Surplus.
I'm wondering about using that language. I mean, most districts, at least the districts, have a surplus process that they use to remove and dispose of all materials, that are school libraries we had textbooks, even though most of them are digital now, but we still had textbooks that Follett would come and pick up and take away and do whatever process that they did with them. So I don't know if that would be.
Do you want us to work through that one to bring, because it sounds like it needs some more discussion. Do you want us to work through what that language is?
Yeah.
And then.
I think so,
Okay.
because I've been thinking too, if we're getting, I don't know how this works, so I have a lot more homework to do myself, but who orders the books that we get? What contracts are we in at a state level or local LEA level with publishers or distributors? Do they ever do refunds? Where do we match up the money? Like if you get stuff that you don't, we got those books, we send them back and they reimburse us because we paid them. I don't know if that's how that works, but those dynamics, like who orders the books? Are we on an automatic shipment of these are the books that are under this entity that says send that out to all the all the schools nationwide? And why? And if it's getting to the point where laws are in place now that it's like there's a group of percentage of your books that are falling in conflict with the law, that how do we mitigate that from the beginning instead of having to do something like this at the back end, like it's putting a Band-Aid on a hemorrhage type approach. So I don't know, it just seems like there's a higher level interactions that we can have to prevent this from even needing to be utilized on a grander scale.
So he's just accomplished who's miraculous. I think she might have nailed it.
Yeah, so it's not necessary. It's not necessary.
Oh, I know.
This is so these made some attempts to.
Do all of those things exist though?
I was gonna say, I probably don't want to take the time now, but I would love to share with you like how librarians operate and how schools operate with selecting materials and
how they contract.
Yeah, and how the contracts work and how refunds work, all of that. I'd be happy to
Publishers
spend some time.
contract with authors, and if authors have, like to delve off into that field, that's their right, but as our entity, we have to protect.
Yeah, and I don't generally contract with authors. Like I haven't heard of an LEA.
I don't know how. It
Yeah, but I would love to meet with you and kind of share.
Okay, so what do you think? Is that enough, or do we want to?
So I added this to the policy section. So this is the section that states that an LEA needs to work on their policy for 2024. And this is one of the things that should be included is a process for disposing of removed materials that considers, so it doesn't have to, but it would consider the physical removal of the material as well as communication with vendors and publishers. So they can then make their own process for how it looks.
Sounds good to me.
I'm looking at you like you were the decision makers.
And then we would take this out.
I'm gonna make a motion in just a minute. This is the motion I'm gonna make, because I do think and I'm speeding ahead here a little bit, I do think that we have a model policy, and it was kind of thinking, do we need it, do we not need it? That was kind of some discussion. I think we do need it because there are ways that do use our policy. So and you're right, every LEA is not going to use our policy, and so and they don't have to, right? But we do have people that are using our policy. I'm actually going to make a motion that we do standards and assessment meeting between now and May. I think we get this roughly done without voting this one through, and then work on the policy and finish this up at that time, so that we still have time to kind of think through, make sure it's right. But I'm not gonna make that motion yet, because I think we have 10 minutes.
But you have a few other.
I know we do. Do we wanna wait on this one then and attach the others, or do we wanna just go as far as we can and then just continue on with our meeting at the next one?
So what's the sensitivity, time sensitivity issue?
Just
Districts are.
We can go to 12:30. You have 12:30 to 1 to have lunch, but you kind of have to stop by 12:30.
Okay.
Well,
This has to probably be on the next agenda. But that's why I would have a special meeting, is because it needs to be on the agenda.
In order for districts to have it by July 1st.
I would
So
feel
you-
good with a special meeting on this, just because, not because I think we're like in arguments about, what the policy should look like, just to make sure we can get it right.
Yeah.
okay, good.
Should I just,
So
go ahead.
board leadership,
Yeah.
do you think we can have a
I'll
special
text
meeting?
them and ask.
Okay.
No, we will. I'll put it on the list. And
So
Patty will
that
remind
that
me.
would be the motion then, is the motion is to,
Well, yes. Should we keep going through this for a few more minutes? Just so that if there's other questions, we've at least got it out there so that.
Let's keep going.
Okay. The state board, so this is the compliance piece that the state board needs to do. And Michelle, help us if we've got it in order.
I need to see it up there.
Okay. That the superintendent shall, and this would be staff, compile LEA determinations for objective sensitive materials submitted before July 1st, 2024. Communicate to LEAs by August 5th, 2024, objective sensitive materials meeting the statewide removal threshold. And then we just listed the threshold there, so it's clear in code what that is, or rule. So August 5th gives a month and a few days for that to kind of be pulled together. Is there anybody have any?
I just worry that the staff is not there at a school between July and
It
August
would
5th.
be our staff. I mean, it wouldn't be theirs, it would be ours.
LEA staff.
But the LEA needs to let us know between July 1st, when this goes into effect, and August 5th. And between July 1st and August 5th, school staff is not in session.
Yeah, they have to let us know by July 1st. It's our staff that do the next piece.
You want them to immediately, instantaneously let us know by July 1st, when this goes into effect, July 1st? They need to instantaneously notify us. Their staff is not.
But here's the other problem is, otherwise we're into, I would think, we're saying the deadline's July 1st, and you're saying they're gonna notify us after July 1st?
It doesn't go into effect until July 1st.
Oh,
The law does not.
the
The law
law?
does not go into effect till July 1st.
What does the law require? That they notify us by July 1st?
Just says they'll notify us of books that were decided prior to July 1st, is the way that it says it in the law. So it doesn't give you a time frame that they need to notify you by. It's just that they need to notify you about books that they decided prior to this law going.
Okay, I see where you're headed on that.
So I
This is
want
why
to
it
give
takes a
them
lot of
staff
time.
Yeah.
So what would that time frame be then? What do we need them to notice? What do you guys think? After July 1st, what does the time frame need to be?
Yeah, because there's not a lot of staff, at least in July.
Going from them to us, yeah.
When do LEAs have their staff and their librarian and their? In August, they have.
In August, late August, mid-August.
So then September 1st, maybe, that gives them that July, August.
They need to take a look at what else has to happen at September 1st.
September
They
1st is
they
a
might
Sunday.
just throw their hands in the air and go, are you kidding me?
I'm also wondering, because we said they didn't have to go through the full review process over again, but they can, they would need more than just 2 weeks if they choose to go through the full review process. Otherwise, we're kind of
Okay, so
making that not an option either.
Yeah.
We can keep working on this part if we wanted to have that special meeting. That could be something we.
In the timelines.
okay,
So on this part, we're looking, what we need to be thinking about is how much time a local LEA would realistically need in order to report to the state. Is that correct? Okay.
Is there a way to understand, like, to like talk to some LEAs to see how much time that would take?
that was the other thing I was thinking. Plus, once the rules approved in May, I don't know how many are gonna wait till, and maybe they will just wait till July 1st and then decide to look at it. It would seem to me that,
They would look right away.
yeah. Well, it's something, right? Ask lots of people about, gather information. Okay, so that's kind of there still. So after August 5th or whatever date we have, right? Notify LEAs, appointed designee that the state board members within 10 school days after the statewide removal threshold. Okay, let me read that again. So this is our part. After whatever the date is that we give, we notify LEA's appointed designee and state board members, which is important, within 10 days after the statewide removal threshold has been met. So there's a time frame that we would have to notify people after the threshold's been met. Right. Okay. And then compile an annual report. That's what we've got to do. And as far as the state board members, because there's a provision in here that allows for them to bring it back up following the notification of an objective sensitive material statewide removal, a state board member may, within 30 days of notification, which that notification is up above, request that the material be placed on an agenda in full board meeting for a vote of the board according to the agenda process as outlined in board bylaws.
And the vote is to return it to the shelves.
Yes.
Yes.
So we need to use the language that's in the law that says for a vote of the board to overturn the statewide ban. Is that what the?
Let's see, place the material on the agenda of a public board meeting after the day on which, okay, at the specified state board meeting, vote to overturn the application. That's what it'd be, of the requirement.
Of the, so that this overturn the statewide ban.
So another comment on that one. Sorry, I was just going over this with Ben and Andy. We don't typically put in rule board procedures because they apply more broadly, right? And that in board policies, we have more of those procedures. But this is kind of an interesting case because it is so explicit in the law. So that's just a conversation for you all to have if you want to more specifically talk about this in a specific policy, or but up to you guys.
You're saying if we want to address it, sensitive materials, in
the policy versus this part out. Yeah, exactly.
Or do we want to just address it here? You're saying we traditionally don't
We
address it
traditionally
here.
don't, but this law was very specific about that, and so that's kind of new for us.
Okay, so maybe there's something else to think about. Okay.
And this is different than your, different than your bylaws, because this allows a state board member to request that it be put on, and your board bylaws say that you have to have 3 or more members to put something on an agenda.
But if it's according to the process outlined in bylaws, does that then hold them to that anyway?
That's my question, is the state board member able to initiate whatever our process is to put something on, or is it just the state board member? It's a new process.
No.
That's why I was referencing the bylaws according to section 7, because it outlines what we would.
That you would need to have 3 board members.
Yeah, that a person could initiate it, but they would go through our process, which would allow that to take
And that would
place.
be initiating, that makes sense.
Yes, that's why I was.
That's where it would be based on member, state board member may, and then it's say initiate, yeah.
And then just one more thing to think about, because we have to have it on an agenda in 60 days. We put 30 here. The reason why is because once you get it initiated and submitted, then there still has to be some kind of time frame for it to get on an agenda. It can't just be the second it's initiated, it gets it on agenda, because it doesn't work that way. We have to go through our process to get it on agenda. So just something to think about there as you're all thinking.
Something there about finalization within 60 days so that a special meeting would have to occur if it gets.
We can address it.
And I guess that's why, whether we want that in policy or if we want that in
That's true.
So I have a question on this one as well. Is this in essence like a nullification clause for the other, the 3 school districts or the 2 school districts and the 5 charter schools that they went through all of that work?
My understanding is theirs gets to stay, that those local districts get to stay.
It just wouldn't be
What
a
their decision
statewide
is, it's just no longer a statewide ban.
Okay, so if lines 93 and 94 happen, it triggers a statewide removal unless you have
You as a board overturn that.
but the lines 93, 94 can still keep to what they had decided as a whole.
Yeah.
We're not going to
The
force
original
this
deciders.
as a state to
Make a different decision. No.
Original deciders can still keep it removed from their individual LEA.
Is that in the law?
I think it is in the law.
It's the Senate compromise.
Yep, the statewide removal requirement, if that happens, is no longer applies. But an LEA may choose to return the material to student access, and nothing affects the findings of the LEA governing board removing a given material if they choose that.
So let's say that happens and then let's say the book is whatever, really bad or whatnot, and then other LEAs decide that, hey, we actually don't want this, and then they now trigger the process again, take the same title, and 3 other school districts join in to also get rid of that book because it was just an oversight. We can allow that process to be triggered for the same book?
I just don't know.
That's a good question. If they were made a mistake and put it back and other LEAs still don't agree with what the board decided.
Like if that triggered the 3 again, it just, I would think that would be the final process, but.
I'll say that when that was negotiated at the legislature, that question didn't come up.
Yeah.
The Senate went to Representative Ivory and said, we can't go where you wanted initially. Can we make this deal? When it went to then the conference committee, that's what came out. And in the conference committee, there was no contemplation of would it be 3 now and then 3 later. We're just in an unknown possibility there.
I'm just wondering, I just want to make sure that this isn't going to nullify anything that.
Not with the
because I
local,
feel like
I don't think.
Sometimes, if an issue isn't just right next to us, we're not.
Keep in mind, the board itself is gonna have to vote with an 8 majority for that to take place. For that book to be, so.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so
Let me make a motion. I'd like to make a motion that we continue our standards and assessment meeting at a future date before the May board meeting, so that these items that can be continued work on. So, and I don't know.
we have a motion that will continue this work in a special meeting that will be hopefully approved by board leadership. And all in favor? Do we need a second?
No.
None. So all in favor, say aye.
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 Thank you, Board Member Real. So we'll now continue. Thanks, Debbie.
Thank you. You did well.
All right, so we have just a few minutes. Can we finish any other items?
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
So next we have Student Advisory Council.
Do you want me to just make a motion? You want to talk about it or?
So just very quickly, we realized that we needed to update the Student Advisory Council policy to conform with our updated reimbursement policies, things like that, really technical. But in this process, we've gotten into a larger conversation about its purpose and whether or not it's doing justice to our amazing students who are on the council and to the board, and how we can maybe tweak some things to make it even more useful. So we've been having that conversation. So that's where it's at.
Great.
Okay, and I actually have a motion and then I'll speak to it, but I'm gonna make a motion that we sunset the date for the Student Advisory Council, May 2025. So that those that are currently on it can sunset next year, finish out their terms. And then I'm going to also make a suggestion in addition to that motion that the board invite the student members of local board. We can consider higher education too if we want student leadership to represent their district, college, university at a statewide half-day convening. And that's either takes place in March or October. And it's, I have maybe a little structure to it. It's something that we'd do dinner with or lunch. We'd send out questions for students on key education issues that would address current policy issues, legislation, our mission and vision, and then the state board members can engage with the youth and gather insights and feedback. And then the educational component to that would be discuss the proper role of government, similar to what they're kind of doing now, become familiar with the structure, responsibilities, and roles of the legislature, the State Board of Education, and local education entities, discuss the legislative and rulemaking process and how these decisions impact families, educators, students, and education. So that's the motion.
Some great ideas.
And I can speak to that. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, I think this is a great idea. I think that when, being on the board, being new to the board, I was thinking there would be more engagement with the student advisory council. Obviously, we saw my student advisory council member yesterday who won that amazing award. She's incredible. But this allows for us to engage, and it also allows for staff time to be freed up. And I think it's a really great idea moving forward.
Great. Do we want to vote? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And I'll take what you articulated just a moment as your aye, since I didn't hear an aye from you, Board Member Reel. And so we're recommending then this to the board.
Yep.
For their discussion.
Yep.
Great. All right. And
sorry,
then we-
aye.
Okay.
Okay, and then we have.
Question quick on logistics of this one.
So this means that it sunsets at the end of 2025 school year. So we would still need the reimbursement changes that are in draft 1.
Okay.
We could amend draft 1 to have a sunset date, and then we just approve draft 1 as amended.
Okay.
Would that work?
Well, so you need me to do what?
So we also approve draft 1 of the policy.
Okay, I would make a recommendation that we approve draft 1 of policy
5008.
5008 as amended. That's not amended.
It will be to put this sunset date.
Oh, yeah, as amended. What's the sunset date? Does that meet and bring before the board
I
for
believe so. Does that?
second and final approval?
Okay, we have the motion that was just articulated. Okay. Did we get that motion?
Yeah, I think we're good.
Okay, great.
And Elise will help me with the new
Any
version.
discussion? If not, let's vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Board Member Reel,
Aye.
thank you. All right, moving on to 3.8, Board Policy 5001, Advisory Committee on Equity of Educational Services for Students Amendment.
Okay, and I'm going to make a motion that we sunset the Access Committee on June 30th of 2024. And the other information is something maybe we can discuss okay, that's my motion, and then I'm speaking to it already.
All right, we have a motion that we sunset the Access Committee
June 30th, 2024.
June 30th, 2024. Any discussion?
I'll speak to that real quick. There's been a lot of discussion over the last couple of weeks, looking at House Bill 261. There's components of that bill that we're not in line with anymore. We're going to have to revisit that. I rewrote the Access Committee like 2 different times, the different components. Then I started asking the questions. This looks almost the same as other committees we have, or we already have processes in place. So it met last week with the chair of that committee to have some discussion around that, what that looks like, where the law is, where are, different components of that. I feel like sunsetting this at this point puts us in compliance with the law. We're not trying to just put something together just to mean something. We'll be more directional. And I would like to have a discussion at our study session or our special session to look at some components that I've put here, but I'll just submit those because I don't want that part of the motion. That we actually look at putting together an entity that has to do with, and I'll just read this out just so that you get an idea. Provide information and recommendations to the board that drives academic excellence and creates opportunity for students. Talks about student success and opportunity. And then it would be comprised of, and I have some recommendations, but obviously whatever, others would have, but it would maybe have our U-Lead specialist who is engaged in finding the successes around the state. It may have our parent engagement specialist on it, the ELL specialist, and then possibly legislator or someone from higher ed. So we're looking at those full components of initiatives we're looking at for student success. But that's some additional dialogue at our, at another meeting. So anyways.
Okay. So backing up from what we're going to do at another meeting, we're at this moment,
We're amending the policy.
are we approving 5001 draft 1?
It would be that board members, now that it's highlighted now. Yeah, board member Earl.
Policy be amended to include a sunset date for the Access Committee in Board Policy 5001 of June 30th, 2024, so that we're in compliance with the law. All right, any further discussion or questions? Let's vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 Thank you. The vote is unanimous. So I look forward to that discussion.
We still
Coming
need
up
to vote
future.
on the draft then.
This would
Just plant the seed in these last few minutes. If we were to select
Wait 1 sec.
goal,
We have one question change that was in the draft one.
There were membership changes.
membership changes.
That would no longer really be
They're not
necessary.
moving, so she's not moving draft one, she's moving the policy itself with an amendment to put a sunset date.
Yeah.
Okay, so we don't,
So we're not using draft one,
So we're not
but she's
using draft one.
just
Okay.
using the policy itself.
so then this is enough to pass through the whole thing.
Right.
Okay.
So is that correct?
Sorry.
then? That would be the correct.
So we're just making sure we got the right thing. So thank you. I'm sorry for interrupting you.
problem.
Sorry.
I would just like to plant the seed as you go to lunch and you have all of 32 minutes to partake of whatever it is you partake of. Think about if there were a goal that would become one of the 4 board goals in connection with our strategic plan. If we had a goal that was centered here in the Standards and Assessment Committee, what would that goal be? Do you know what the 4 goals currently are? Would one of those be housed here, or is there a new goal that may have something to do with academic excellence, and standards and the assessment process of measuring that academic excellence that students are mastering? Is there a goal that should become, as we move forward, the goal that's housed and advocated for here in this committee as one of the 4 goals? Thinking about that. Thank you to everyone who prepared for the meeting and helped us get through that information that we've discussed today. We look forward to the extra meeting that we'll be having very soon before the May board meeting, and express appreciation to staff and to Deputy Superintendent Norman and Michelle. We're so grateful
Elise was a trooper
Elise
too.
Great. A lot accomplished today, and we're finishing a half a minute early. Thank you.
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you. We have a motion to adjourn. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
All right, Sarah, get
Thanks.
feeling better.
See you out there on that
Thank you,
Zoom.
guys. Appreciate it.
Jerry, will you stop